All right, let's talk some med legal stuff. Every year I approach this one, I'm always like, wow, one chapter and like 40 slides. I'm like, what would we do with the time? And then after that lecture, I'm always like, holy great moly. There's so many questions to be had, and I'm happy to field them, because a lot of what's happening here is like, right, you're starting to picture yourself in the job, right? You're starting to say, okay, but when I'm here and I see this, what do I do again? So I love those kind of questions. It's a very vocab heavy one. And like several chapters that we have, you may find yourself prone to look into it further. I would say, great, if you need more than what I'm giving you, and perhaps you should, go ahead and dig into the book. If you're like, but this is so interesting, I want to look into it more. As soon as you go to, most of what you're seeing here is kind of a superficial understanding of the law in general and how it applies and affects you in your career as an EMT. But you could dig into a lot of this language and be like, actually, it means ... And I'm like, yeah, well, we are getting essentially something that goes an inch deep and a mile wide. We are not going that far into it. So I would say be careful getting an understanding about the legal terms outside of the book or the lecture that we're giving here. Now, put pretty simply, we need you to understand that your scope of practice, is basically the legal part, right? The state authorizes you to do what you need to do, but it's really culture that sets the standard of care. Now, admittedly, a lot of things can do that. Litigation can, in a sense, like previous experiences and court cases can set it, but it's kind of like saying, like, you have to be somewhat careful. If you work maybe inner city, okay, here's a good example. Does anybody know what staging is? What does it mean to stage in EMS? Evan?
Certain like areas of where to prepare or like get ready.
Certain areas to prepare, like for prom, right? Michelle?
If the scene is unsafe.
If the scene is unsafe, you stage away from it, so we're keeping our ambulance and our personnel away, much like what Evan was saying. Yes, excellent. Yeah, absolutely. Now, as far as the rules of staging, generally what we're talking about here is I would not be if you have deemed that a scene is unsafe before you even get there, you should not be in sight of that, right? I've had a couple of partners, they're like, yeah, we'll just get real close. And I'm like, they said it's not safe, dude. We don't need to get close, right? And they're like, well, I just want to see in case anything happens or in case people start to pull up. And then I've seen people run out of their house and run at the ambulance or whatever, and I'm like, okay, now we're having a problem, right? And don't get me wrong, I adore my patients. I do just about everything I could for them, but there's been instances where I'll watch you die in your living room if it means the time is unsafe, right?
Really?
Yeah. Now, admittedly, there's been a host of things that I think somebody might look at and think, whoa, look like you viewed the patient a little higher than yourself in that, and no doubt. But I mean, I gotta raise warriors. I gotta go home. I gotta tell them boys about life, right? Ain't gonna do no good if I'm there dead. Now, admittedly, when people ask me how I feel about my wife becoming a cop, usually they mean it's dangerous. How do you feel about that? And I'm like, she's a dangerous woman. It'll be all right. And they're like, yeah, but what if she dies? I said, well, I may feel differently if she dies, but I would rather my boys be raised by a single father because they had a mother who would rather do good for the community and die for it than a mother that was too afraid to die for the good of the community and her be alive, and you know what I mean? So I don't know, I'll probably feel differently if she dies. But in any event, I remember pulling up on scene for domestic abuse or something, and we're in Flint, Michigan, and we pull up on the side of the road, it's snow everywhere. We go to get out of the car, and out of the house, this dude walks out, this huge dude, and he's like, these motherfuckers are not coming in here. And I was like, hey, buddy, we're not here for you, we're chilling. And then his buddy came out, and then his buddy came out, and then his buddy came out, and they start pouring out of the house. And I'm like, back in the truck, boys. So my partner gets in, we shut the door, and I'm like, we gotta go. And he's like, dude, we're stuck, we're spinning in the snow. Dude, they come up to the ambulance, they're shaking it, punching the windows and stuff. I'm like, look, hit this, we gotta go. And he's like, ah, right? And so the window's kind of cracked there. She's like crying on the porch. I'm like, baby, you call 911 from somewhere safe, we're coming back to you, whatever. We peel out of there or whatever. Look, I love that girl to bits, right? Well, I'm not gonna die to some strangers. Well, I mean, I helped nobody for the rest of my career if I died there, right? We peeled out. When they were all at the ambulance, she ran around the house, went to somebody's house, called from there. We ended up picking her up like 30 minutes later at a different location. But the point is that, we teach you to stage when it's unsafe. If it's not safe, you stage, yeah? And you'll call for PD. Like maybe if you walk up, you see some guy with a bat and you're just like, sir, if you need anything, you call 911. I got to call police now, goodbye. Whatever, you get in the truck, you leave, right? Hey, we need PD en route, emergent. We've got a gentleman who's aggressive on scene. So you're now staging, right? How long do you wait for PD? 30 minutes? Say it again? Till they come. It's probably a best test answer, right? Because it's not safe until they do, right? Okay, if you did that at the company I work for in Flint, they'd fire you. It would take 3-4 hours for cops to get there.
You better be the police or what?
Well, you'll make your decision there.
Can I make more patience for myself?
What I'm telling you is that here's how you answer on the registry. If it's not safe, you don't go in, right? And I think that's a great answer when you work in a place with a lot of police who can facilitate the da-da-da-da. I've worked places where that was not the case, you know? So if, for example, in here, where I'm only waiting 15 minutes for a cop or something, right? If I rushed in to find a man stabbing his wife to death and my partner got stabbed because we were trying to fight him off or whatever, and I was like, I came from an area where you had to wait forever from cops. The standard of care here is you wait for PD, right? And the reverse happens where I worked previously, or if I'm like, I am not helping, and I go there, and they're like, I'm sitting on a court, and they're like, the man stabbed his wife to death. You did nothing. And I'm like, I'm supposed to stage for it. I'm like, and they're like, we don't have cops. You can't, you have to, you know what I mean? Like the standard of care is different. It's the culture, it's the expectation, right? And quite frankly, I don't think we talk enough about it. I think a lot of education is like, well, this is scope of practice and this is the way it should be. And then you go out into the world like bright little bunnies and you're like, yeah, but it's not always like that. Now what the hell do I do? And that's where we're talking about standard of care. Did you do it right? Did you operate as other people are in the most appropriate way? I talked already about this. What I was just talking about is essentially the culture and the community that you're in of EMS, what is expected of you. Be mindful of that. Mr. King and I disagree about one thing. Well, we disagree about a lot of things, but this one thing that we disagree about is whether or not we should put a C-collar on a person who has neck pain without putting them in full C-spine immobilization. I would say that in this area, if you put somebody with neck pain on, I guess referencing Mr. King doesn't matter a whole lot now that he's not your clinical coordinator. Anyways, yeah, but he agrees with me because he's smart. But you know Mr. King, you came in here, right? Yeah. Okay, incredibly brilliant man. Knows more about me than trauma by a mile, right? But in any event, we disagree. My patient has neck pain, I'm gonna put him in a C-collar. And he's like, well, if you're gonna do a C-collar, you should do a full backboard because that makes no sense. I'm like, okay. When we take him to the hospital, every hospital in this area, if he has neck pain, they're gonna put him in a C-collar. And so my philosophy, actually Mr. Dennert disagrees with me as well. My philosophy is I'm gonna match the culture. If I take this guy and I don't put Leah in a full C-spine precautions and I don't put her in a C-collar, and I walk in, take her into Kennestone, they're immediately going to say, oh, chest pain from car accident? Put her in a C-collar. What I want is 2 years from now, and I have long since forgotten this call, that doctor says, well, she came in a C-collar, which is what I expected her to do, because that's what I would have done. What I don't want is, well, we put the C-collar on because he didn't. And now I have to make the case that it matters in the first place, that he did or didn't. You see what I'm saying? So to me, I don't think we talk enough about the culture and the community of EMS and the expectations of the people around you. Now, Mr. Dennert and Mr. King are much more of the mindset of, yeah, well, it's wrong and therefore I'm not doing it. And I'm like, all right, well, we different in that way. You'll make your own decision, I suppose. Now, look, when you're out there in the world, when you don't know what to do what you think is best. Don't die on the hill of indecision. Make a choice. Make a choice. Yeah, but what if it's not the best? No, I can assure you it's not the best. Did you just start your career? Yeah, it's probably a very bad one you're about to make. But you gotta make a choice and you gotta keep moving, right? Now, I'm not telling you to rush, but I am saying that we move with urgency. My EMT instructor told me, Mr. Farron, if I ever see you running on scene, I will trip you. He didn't say don't move fast, he just said don't run. I think it's an important sentiment. If you don't know what to do what you think is best. It is also a good idea to call med control. Who is med control? It is a doctor. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe medical director. I've never heard that term described as your destination. In my mind, medical director is the guy that at the company you work for. That's the doctor at the company you work for. Whereas med control is the receiving facility doctor. So med control is like, okay, if I'm going to Kennestone and I need answer, well, a doctor at Kennestone, I'm going to Kennestone, so a doctor there is going to take over care, which means I need to talk to the guy that's going to take care of the patient about what he wants me to do in this situation, right? I'm not going to call my medical director because he is not going to take care of this patient. You see what I'm saying? So wherever I'm going, if I don't know the answer to the question and I need to phone a friend and get some help, I'm going to call that destination and say, hey, I need a doctor. You all right?
When you call med control, you're not just like necessarily calling someone online, you're directly calling to the facility that's going to be receiving it.
Excellent question. Essentially, the idea is what is calling med control? And this is how this would go, right? So I'll be, let's say I needed an answer for a question. I have a patient who is experiencing chest pain. What's one of the primary medications I want to give them? Aspirin. Why do I want to give a person with chest pain aspirin? It prevents further coagulation, right? Because it's an antiplatelet aggregate. Yeah. Okay, great. I want to do that. Now, what is something that would prohibit me from giving aspirin even though I wanted to? If he's allergic, if it is a contraindication present. So I call med control because this guy is having a full-on heart attack. I know it. And he tells me he's allergic to it. Well, when you're allergic, I can't give you that med. If you die from anaphylaxis because I gave you a med you're allergic to, I'm not really helping anybody out, right? So I say to him, you're allergic, what happens? He says, well, my tummy kind of hurts. And I'm like, oh, okay. Now, it's still a contraindication. He said allergic. But because I'm clever, I know I'm going to call a doctor and pass the ball to him. So this is kind of how it would go. I'm like, you're allergic? I say, hey, well, look, let me call a doctor so I can get authorization to give you a medication that is contraindicated because I think it's going to save your life. What is the mortality reduction of giving somebody who's having a heart attack aspirin? 10%. Ooh, you're close except for 230% higher. 23% higher. No, 230%. It's about a quarter, right? If I have 10 people that are going to die from a heart attack and I give them all aspirin, now suddenly 2.5 of them don't die. It's a profoundly impactful medication, right? Not as impactful as oxygen. Somebody doesn't have the oxygen they need, they die pretty quick. I can prove it to you, hold your breath for a while. In any event, I say, okay, well, look, I understand, Mr. Smith, you're allergic to this, but I think aspirin could really help you out. Please stay seated. We're going to get things fixed up. I turn on the radio. I listen for a second because it's one way. We call what kind of radio? Simplex, right? I don't hear any traffic. What do I say first? Hey, this is Mr. Fearon, or hey, Kennestone ER? Hey, you, it's me, right? Kennestone ER, this is Metro 214 is the last truck I'm on. 214. Dee-dee. Go ahead, Metro. Dee-dee. Hey, Kennestone, this is Paramedic Fearon. We're en route to your facility with a gentleman, 39-year-old, complaining of chest pain. Ultimately, I need med control to authorize administration of aspirin. Do you want a full report? Dee-dee. Dee-dee. No, we're good. I'll get you Dr. Smith. Hang on. Dee-dee. I'm dying. Oh, God, the pain. Please. Why won't you do anything? Hey, this is Dr. Smith. Hey, Dr. Smith, you want a full report? Short and skinny. Yeah, just sum it up for me. Understood. Look, we're Metro 214, Paramedic Fearon, out to your facility. We've got a 39-year-old male complaining of chest pain. Look, I got elevation in 2 contiguous leads. I think he's having a big one here, and I want to give him aspirin. He said that he's allergic to it, which is contraindication per my protocol. He said his tummy hurts, though, and I think that it's appropriate to administer it in this case. Yeah, me too. Go ahead. Go ahead. That's Dr. Smith. S-M-I-T-H. Thanks. We'll see you in 15. All right. Right, and so, no, I shouldn't give it to him because there's a contraindication for it, but I can call a doctor to override essentially that reasonable expectation. I know it makes your tummy hurt and maybe you're going to develop anaphylaxis, but it's so powerful at saving people's lives who are having a heart attack that I'm not just giving up, and I'm also not just giving it against protocol. I'm calling a doctor to override that, and that's the med control. So if you don't know, do what's best, but ultimately you can call med control. Was?
So you give them a medicine and then they have an allergic reaction to it. Do you give them epi
Yep,
after?
absolutely.
Okay.
Easy fix. Definitely. I've certainly given people enough pain medication to slow their breathing down. Ooh, whoopsie, little Narcan, we'll buff it out. There you are.
So there's just somebody like at every hospital just kind of sitting there waiting to hear from you?
Yes, ma'am. At every hospital, there is oftentimes a paramedic, sometimes a nurse, it depends, but it's a dispatch, it's a call center? I forget what it's called. But they're just literally sitting there. Their entire job is to take incoming calls. And their entire job is to determine where to put the person that's coming. And so I'll never forget coming down, giving one of my first reports, right? Man, was it detailed, beautiful, elegant, going through the 39-year-old male, all this different stuff, chest pain, we've got contiguous leads, we've got blah, 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 patient stated this on this date, blah, 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 the whole vital signs first, here's one post-nitro, post-second nitro, 2 IVs bilateral, 18 gauge, running fluid wide open, we got 250 milliliters, and I get in there, what does it say? It says unit 123, CP for chest pain. I'm like, whoa! Message received. She's like, holy crap, I just need to know what room. Is he going to peds? Is he going to a trauma? Is he going to neuro? What are we doing here? And then of course, I turn over care to the nurse or doctor, and I'm like, I just gave an entire elegant report, and they're like, right, we don't read those, so can you give it to me now? I'm like, okay. Types of wrongdoing. We have criminal and we have civil. Criminal means the government comes after you, right? If I walk over and I smack Landon across the face, right? And he was like, it's okay, I'll deserve it later. The government does not care how he feels about that. The government says, no. It is inappropriate to attack somebody like that. And he's like, no, it's okay. Part of me didn't hate it. And the government's like, no. It's wrong, and we're going after him. Because I committed a crime, right? Now, if I went over there and maybe hugged him or something, the government would be like, well, it's battery, technically, but it's going to be hard to pursue and stuff, so we're not going to assign somebody to that case. A cop is going to walk in and be like, hugged you? Look, here's the name of a good lawyer. Here's your case. Go ahead and pursue it or whatever. But he can come at me for a civil case and say, no, that is grossly, probably get me fired, quite frankly, just generating the civil case, So there's this, a crime happens when the government goes after you, and this results in imprisonment, right? You have violated the law of the land. We all pay the golden goose, right? Civil is when a person comes after you, and that's usually in form of compensation, meaning money, right? Now, if he comes after me for a civil infraction, he hugged me and the government isn't pursuing it, I will not go to jail for it because I haven't been convicted of a crime. But it might mean that I owe him a ton of money depending on how good his lawyer is. Now, in EMS, you might fall victim to either one. Admittedly, it is rare. And what do you suppose is your number one defense against these indictments?
Trying to save a life.
I love that answer. John? Say it again.
I thought it was right.
You thought it was right? Yep, in the same mindset of patient care. Selena? Scope of practice is a great defense. Evan?
Standard operating procedures.
Sure, so we're circling expectations. Rossi?
I was doing what I thought was best.
Yeah, all kind of this sentiment. Yeah, Lamb?
I called med control, they told me it's fine.
Well, that'll be a good one, sure. Yeah, a doctor said I could do it, though it does fall into the thing that, just because a doctor told you you could do it doesn't mean you're safe. Because it has to be those 4 things. Doctor's like, go ahead and cut the baby out, C-section. You're like, I was not educated, certified. I'm like, no, doctor, right? T?
Does it have to do with those 4 steps where, if one of them is missing, the whole thing falls apart?
You're talking about negligence, probably duty to act and the like. I don't remember the question specifically, so I don't think so, though, but. If it wasn't a neglecting. These are all good answers. Truthfully, I don't know what the answer is, but the one I would give is, what did you write down?
Phone Mr. Firo.
Huh?
Phone Mr. Firo.
Yeah. Don't do that. Email me. Yeah. What did you write down? Because if you didn't write it down, it did not happen. Right? I think that's your number one defense against all this. I think that doing it with the patient's best interest in mind is where you need to start, and then you need to write that down. Because 3-5 years from now, when you've forgotten everything about this, and they got you on some cop's body cam, and they show you doing something, and you're like, I don't even remember having that haircut, let alone being there. Well, I did what was best, but more importantly, what did I put in my patient care report? Because that's why I did it, right? So documentation is going to be your friend there for sure. Listen to Mr. Harris when he talks. I do. Now, when you commit a when you commit a criminal act, you have committed a crime. What's it called when you commit a civil crime? A civime. No, I'm just kidding. It's a tort. Well, you better erase that. Turns out some of the things I say is nonsense. I've convinced our 11-year-old thinks he's allergic to strawberries. Because it's funny.
Gaslighting children is
Yeah.
a whole age-old pastime.
Oh, nobody ever tells about Santa? You're all lying. All right.
It's fake?
Every Halloween, my dad would tell me I didn't like peanut butter cups.
Because he did? Yeah, I told that one too. It was only for a while there I told my son he was allergic to strawberries. He's certainly not the case now. And in fact, I don't tell my children about Santa because I don't want to say, look, Santa's real, Easter Bunny's real, it's all real, so's Jesus. Oh wait, anyway. Sorry for the last 10 years of telling you all three of those. Anyway, types of negligence. These are very important to distinguish. And listen to me, write good notes now. When you are done with this program, universally students say that the hardest part to recall and remember and things in registry, in fact, the number one most portion of registry is operations. Take good notes now, it will profit you later. Here's as simple as I can make these things. Anybody speak Spanish in here? Okay, mal. ¿Cómo se dice mal en inglés? Bad, right? Bad, anybody speak legalese? What's feasance? I don't know. Maybe Google it for me. What's feasance mean? In any event, bad. This is a type of negligence. It means you did a thing and you shouldn't because you're bad. You did a bad thing. Misfeasance means, yes, like malfeasance, you did it and you were allowed, so you didn't do a bad thing. The problem is you did it wrong. It's not that you shouldn't have done it. It's that you should have done it the right way. Miss, like you missed the arrow on target. Should you have shot the bow? Yeah, it's in your scope of practice. Should you have hit the target? Yes, but you didn't. You missed it. Misfeasance.
Misdemeanor?
I don't know enough about the etymology to say yes. Because I wouldn't say you should do any form of crime and you just got close by. I don't know. Now, non-feasance means you did nothing. You did none-feasance, in a sense. It means you were expected to do something and then didn't. That is non-feasance.
So, for malfeasance, whenever you put the nebulizer?
Nebulizer, yeah.
Nebulizer on the child, that was malfeasance because you did it, but you weren't allowed to because it wasn't under protocol?
If you were an EMR, that would be true. So an example perhaps of malfeasance, meaning you did something you were not allowed to do, is if Noah said, well, this person was hypotensive. What does that mean? Low blood pressure. Can you die from low blood pressure? Yeah, it probably means you are dying, right? Low blood pressure. And so Noah, to save this person's life, starts an IV, runs fluid in, the blood pressure goes up, they go on to live another day. Did he do the right thing? Well, he committed an illegal act, right? Noah doing an IV as an EMT is malfeasance. He did something he was not allowed to do. Bad. Bad. Huh? It can be both. All of these might be both, depending on if the state wants to come after you or if the person does, or both. Okay, misfeasance. John has a patient who has wheezing in their lower airways. What is wheezing? That's what it sounds like. What is it?
It's lack of oxygen, lack of air. It's tight. Your esophagus is tight?
Esophagus is your grocery hole. Trachea is for oxygen. People at home won't see this. Oh no, I can't move it again, right? Just Wiener Man. Oh, bummer. Well, in any event, sorry, Wiener Man. Okay, here is a summary of your airway, right? Your trachea comes down, it bifurcates at the carina into bronchi. These bronchi separate into bronchioles, okay? Wheezing is the sound of a bronchiole that should be moving air. It is the sound that is made when this airway constricts and less air gets through. Asthma is the chronic condition.
What would dilation sound like too much dilation?
Like this.
So that there's not a proper.
No. We'll talk about stretch receptors later. If I auscultate a patient's lungs and I hear wheezing, now I can only create stridor. Stridor is an upper airway, but wheezing is this sound down here. Now, this is literally stridor because I'm making it with my mouth and my vocal cords. But that sound heard down here implies bronchoconstriction. And that's a problem. Now, you already know that because, may I grab it? If I constrict his trachea, right? Now, he's got more than one bronchiole, but if I constrict enough of them, he dies. So wheezing is the sound of lower airway constriction, bronchial constriction, Yari?
I think, so is that why, like, these people have inhalers, and you get like the wheezing, they take the inhaler.
That's right.
Dilate their bronchial.
What would help this? That's right, that is. Andrew, what would help this person? A bronchodilator, right? This person has bronchoconstriction, and I suspect that. I don't know that, but I suspect that because I hear wheezing. So I give a bronchodilator like asthma. It allows these muscles to relax, and it opens up my airway, yeah? Okay. Now, John has a patient. He listens to lung sounds. He hears wheezing, right? Is it in his scope as an EMT to administer albuterol? How do you know? Oh, yeah, yeah. Specifically, what is the indication? Oh, if only you had it. Bronchospasm. I didn't say wheezing, though, did I? All right? Or sorry, I said wheezing. That doesn't, is I guess the point. We'll get into that later. Wheezing makes me suspect, I don't know, but it makes me suspect bronchoconstriction. And quite frankly, as an EMT, it's about all I got. As an AEMT, we'll put them on N-tidal and you can prove it. But for now, we suspect it. Now, John puts a patient on albuterol. He gives that patient 0.1 milligrams over 10 minutes. That patient suffers an anoxic brain injury, has a stroke, and can never walk again. Why is that misfeasance? Wrong dose. But it's in his scope to do it. But he did it wrong, right? And shame on him. Yeah, very good. Now, in the reverse of that, he's like, I don't remember the dose. I don't want to commit misfeasance, so I'm not going to do anything. Nonfeasance. He didn't do what he should have done. Now, John would never. He's a bright, shining bulb. But had he...
The middle one can only be civil law, but the other two are...
I don't know. My suspicion is they can all be all things.
Okay.
I don't know how it breaks down.
Criminal. And feasance is from Latin, which is to do or make.
To do or make, feasance, thank you. My suspicion is it depends on the ultimate outcome, you know? If a guy, if we didn't give the right dose or didn't give albuterol and he was really bothered by that, it's probably a civil case, and he's probably got a case. But if he was actually harmed from it, we're gonna prove negligence, and that's probably a criminal action. We'll talk about duty here in a second. Now, what do I wanna say? Don't view the points of negligence here or duty, proving negligence like a four-legged table where if you kick one leg out, it still stands. If you're gonna get pinched for negligence, all four have to be proven. All four. Not 1, 2, 3, not most of them, not some of them, all of them have to be proven. And it's the reason we don't get in a lot of trouble in EMS, not often, because it's hard to prove all four. Specifically, it is very hard to prove proximate cause. Okay?
You said it's for negligence?
Negligence.
All four of these have to be...
That's right. For you to be legally negligent in pursuant of a crime or a tort, which is what?
Criminal, civil.
Civil, right? You have to, they will have to prove all four. Let's talk about what these mean. First of all, duty to act is your legal responsibility. This is another way of saying your scope. It's pretty easy to prove that a working EMT on shift had a duty to act. Not only was the guy in uniform, but he was accepting compensation from the company to do a job. That one's easy. Evan's in uniform right now. Does he have a duty to act? Why not? Because he's not licensed, right? Yeah. Any of the 4 prongs, right? Technically hasn't been educated in that way, or at least not by a savant such as me, but he hasn't been certified, he hasn't been licensed, and he's not working under a medical director, right? Therefore, he has no duty to act. Great. You're a certified, licensed, and employed EMT. You're on your way in to work. You see a car accident. You decide not to stop because you don't have any of your equipment. That guy dies from the car accident as a result. Police officer recognized you driving by. He pulls you up on court. Were you negligent? Did you have a duty to act?
No, you ain't clock in.
Because I didn't clock in. Now, do you go to special hell? Maybe. That's a different conversation.
Isn't it kind of like the story you mentioned where like the lady like did something and she was off the clock and speaking is in her scope of practice, but she wasn't acting under like a medical director, so to speak, because she wasn't working. So you mentioned the story like the other day.
It was on her if she did anything.
Yeah, to kind of, can you summarize maybe? Oh, yeah, that was hypothetical. But yes, a person that, like me, if I got an intubation kit in my car and I save Yari's life with it, I might get in big trouble. No, I can't legally intubate. They're like, yeah, but you're a paramedic. You've intubated hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. I'm like, I'm not working under a medical director that has allowed me to do that. When nurses and paramedics, argue back and forth about what we're capable of, I'm like, look, I can do what I can do, and some of that is more than what you can do because a doctor said so, because he's nowhere within arm's reach. It's not because I have a paramedic license. It's because a doctor said I could. And if a doctor's not saying you could, then you're a layperson. So the duty to act is easy to prove when you're on shift for sure, and you don't have a duty to act if you're not. Put pretty simply, where it becomes a bit of more of a complication is a patient might have a gun in the house. PD said they've had this complaint 15 times. They're not even going out to it. You don't go in because it wasn't safe and the guy dies. Did you have a duty to act? Well, that's for the lawyers to decide at that point, right? I think it would be pretty easy to defend, quite frankly, but just a little more vague on whether or not you had the duty to act. A breach of duty is a failure of that responsibility. Essentially, okay, so we proved that it was your job to do something, but you didn't in some way. Not only do we have to prove that you belonged there in the first place and you had to do something, but we also had to prove that you failed to meet that standard. Okay, so we know it's in your scope because you have a duty to act, but did you meet the standard? Did we experience a breach of duty? You're all doing very well not laughing at the word duty. The last two, damages, means specifically that the patient had suffered. This one isn't super hard to prove either. You'll be surprised to hear that a lot of the calls you go on, people are sick and injured. Hopefully you are not surprised by that. That is why most of them call in the first place. The hard part to prove, and why most of us don't get in trouble, is that the damages that occurred were because of us. That's proximate cause, because of you. What that means essentially is that you get dispatched to difficulty breathing. You gave albuterol. That person still develops an anoxic or hypoxic brain injury. Now they can't lift their left arm. They come after you, they pursue the company, they pursue you personally, and they say, my husband suffered a stroke, hypoxia of the brain, and we say, but we did everything we could. And they're like, per your PCR, who's the PCR belong to, by the way? Do we know? Patient care report? As far as I understand, both the patient and myself. I write it, but it's theirs. Everyone has the right to know what happened to them, right? And that's why I'm writing that PCR in part. They say, well, we pulled your PCR. We went and got a subpoena for it. You didn't give albuterol until 16 minutes in. Yes, he was having an asthma attack and bronchoconstriction. Yes, you gave a bronchodilator, but you didn't do it soon enough. And if you had, my husband would be fine. Well, they now have to prove that even if yes, I had a duty to act. Yes, I may have had a breach of duty because I gave it at 16 minutes instead of 60 seconds. Yes, the patient suffered, but can you definitively prove that he wouldn't have had it anyways? That the medicine somehow would have completely prevented and reversed the cause? That is very difficult to prove. Any questions? Evan?
So, you had mentioned before that like you're not supposed to do these things if you're not, like let's just say you're not actively working.
Okay.
And if,
Thank you.
But if you let's just say you do this thing, and
Oh, you're asking questions about Good Samaritan. We'll get to it.
well, no, about damages. Because like if they come out totally fine, does that mean they can still prove negligence?
No, because there are no damages.
So if you intubate someone and
I push a guy down the stairs as an EMT. Is that a problem?
That's a big. It could be.
Depends on what he said to me. You didn't even ask. Yeah, I push a guy down the stairs. That's a problem. He sues me for negligence. I had a duty to act. Yeah, I was there to help. Did I breach that duty? Yeah, it was probably somewhere between the area of pushing him down the stairs, right? Can you prove proximate cause? Can you prove that I hurt him?
Well, yeah, you pushed him down the stairs. But now it's just word of mouth.
He's not even hurt. You can't prove that I hurt him because he's not hurt, which means out of the 4 points of negligence, you can't prove proximate cause and you can't prove damages. There were none, right? So, no, you're not negligent, but you might be guilty of a crime for battering somebody. All right. There's one other type of negligence that falls into a different category. Anybody know? This is your patient. What should you suspect? Allergy. Sure, not just allergy, but do we get into this right now? Okay, excellent point, honestly, kind of where I'm going. So basically we get this. An allergic reaction can become anaphylactic shock or anaphylaxis. Write this down for me. Shock gets its name with hypotension. Shock gets its name with hypotension. Myrna, you suspect this guy's got an allergic reaction. Is it anaphylaxis? Say it again. Why don't you know if it's anaphylaxis? Why don't you know? Andrew?
I mean,
Because it's a picture.
I would say, but
You
I
w-
don't know exactly why.
How could you not? Obviously, it's an allergic reaction. Why isn't it anaphylactic shock? Or how don't you know? Selena?
Because his lips are still pink.
It's a reasonable guess, but no. Somebody look at her shamefully. Thank you, Yari.
We don't know if it's low blood pressure.
Because we don't know what his blood pressure is. Because shock gets its name when they're,
Hypotension.
right? So, Myrna, do you think this might be an allergic reaction?
I don't know.
Yes, I think it is, and so do you.
Okay.
Do you think it's anaphylactic shock?
I don't know.
We don't know. It might be, and how would you figure it out?
So then how do you know it's an allergic reaction?
I don't, but I suspect it.
That's your assumption.
I'm assuming it. I'm starting under the assumption.
So it's also the other thing.
Don't do that. Well, I'm not even saying that. I'm not, okay, let me take that back. I'm not saying you shouldn't assume this might be anaphylactic shock, but what I'm specifically asking you is, do you suspect this might be allergic reaction?
Yes.
Great. Do you know if this is anaphylactic shock? No. So two different questions. One is about the suspicion, one is about what you can prove. And you can't prove this is anaphylactic shock because you don't know his
Blood pressure.
blood pressure. Is that a question, Rossi?
No.
Oh, okay. Just good to see you.
So what if he's either blood pressure?
Okay, his blood pressure comes back as 140/90. Is he in anaphylactic shock? No, because if he was in an anaphylactic shock, his blood pressure would be low. Now, is he going to be in 10 seconds? Probably. Should you not give epi because? No, I'm not saying all that. But this will become much more important when we start layering neurogenic shock, psychogenic shock, and all the other forms of shock. They get their names with low blood pressure. Okay. Now, it might be allergic reaction. That's how I want you to think. I want you to think maybe this is anaphylactic shock. We better get on it. Better check his blood pressure soon. But it also might be Botox. Cheap Botox. This is also sometimes a result of taking ACE inhibitors. I don't know. No, I do know. But there are different types of medications you can take to lower your blood pressure. The lulls, right? Metoprolol, propanolol, these all force your heart to beat slower. If your heart doesn't beat fast, then it's difficult to raise your blood pressure, okay? ACE inhibitor inhibits an enzyme. Instead of working on your heart, it works on an enzyme released from your lungs to prevent your blood pressure from going up. All I need you to know right now is that sometimes taking lisinopril, taking what? Lisinopril is an ACE inhibitor. Lisinopril is what? An ACE inhibitor. Sometimes taking a blood pressure medication called lisinopril will make you look like you're in an allergic reaction. It's just what it does. Epi doesn't work on it.
What's happening to it?
Say it again.
Person, right?
Oh yeah, look at him.
Well, yeah, but like they won't die.
I would hope not, but you are mostly right. ACE inhibitor reactions largely just simply cause angioedema or of the lips and stuff, but don't swell the airway. Now that you know that, I want you to forget it, basically. I don't want you to walk in and be like, I mean, a wise EMT would say, well, do you take any blood pressure medications? And they say, yeah, I do. I take this, and that. And you're like, okay, you Google them. You're like, okay, one of these is an ACE inhibitors. Great, let's not give them Epi. No, we don't know this is the cause of the ACE inhibitor. We want you to suspect catastrophically that this is an allergic reaction. Blast that pony with as much Epi as he can handle.
So think horse is not zebra.
Think horse is not zebra, sure. Or think more to the point. Do you got a medication that treats lisinopril or overdoses of lisinopril? You don't, spoiler alert. So I don't expect you to treat it. But you do have one where when you suspect allergic reaction and anaphylactic shock, you give Epi, and that's what we would give. Evan?
Another question that you would ask before that be, are you having trouble breathing?
It's a good one, sure. I would say this, quite frankly, and not to be contradictory, is that if I see a dude with lips swelling like this, I do not chase allergic reactions. I let him chase me. I'm like, hey, stick your tongue out. Feel normal to you? You drooling at all? You got any coughs? No? Cool. Ride the Epi pony. Don't care. Not waiting. Epi is an endogenous chemical, endo, inside. We make it, right? And I remember for my medic class, I was having a disagreement with a gentleman. I was asking different questions. They were rolling their eyes. I really hated it. But during one point, he had asked, what's the difference between endogenous and exogenous, essentially, exogenous and stuff? I said, well, for an example, if you die of a heart attack, that's an endogenous problem in a sense, right? The genus, the beginning of it happened inside of you. But if I come across this room and I stab you to death over and over in the chest with a knife, that is an exogenous. Just, like, but in any event, Epi is made in your adrenal glands. Now, it's not, our body processes it easy and well and quickly, right? And so I often encourage EMTs to be aggressive in Epi because not really anybody's getting hurt from it. Now, if you're over the age of 60 and there's some heart problems, okay, I'm not just saying run it willy-nilly, but if you're on the fence, you're like, God, do I give Epi? Give it, it'll be all right. All right, we'll get into it later, more. Okay, so how do we give Epi?
Stick 'em.
Intramuscular, appreciate that specificity. Stick 'em, yes, action was perfect. Intramuscularly, right? So would it be appropriate to see this person and essentially get to the point where we administer intramuscular Epi to them? Any negligence committed? No. What if we did it intraocularly? Yeah. I had to hold my friend so still for this, it was crazy. Okay. This is your first of two Latin terms, res ipsa loquitur. Res ipsa loquitur. Now, you don't have to try too hard on this. Here's what you need to know. There are two Latin phrases, they mean very different things. That's what you need to know. Now, this first one, res ipsa loquitur, it's like literal translation is the thing speaks for itself. No lawyer will have to prove negligence if you stuck somebody in the eyeball. We get it. Make sense? Connor, can you summarize res ipsa loquitur for me? Loquitur? Say it again. Yeah, mucked up. It was a little hard to hear you this far away. Mucked up, right? You mucked up big. So big, no lawyer has to prove anything. They just show you that picture, right? Very good. All right, let's play a game. MVA, what does it stand for? Motor vehicle accident, right? Some people say MVC, MVA, it's all synonymous largely. A motor vehicle accident. You dropped your patient. They now have a C4 fracture. Can you point to your C4?
In your spine.
It is in your spine. I see some stomach pointing. Uh-oh. Yeah. Okay. Essentially, everybody puts their flat hand against the back of their head. You pull it down until you hit that big ledge. There's your C7. C4 is above that somewhere. Okay? This will become very, very important later. I'm going to say this. You say it back to me. C3 through C5. Keeps the phrenic nerve alive. If you get a spinal fracture in this area, it will cut the wire that makes you breathe.
Spinal fraction in this area will cut the wire that makes it hard to breathe.
Yeah. Your phrenic nerve leaves your spinal cord in this area, C3 through C5. It goes down to your diaphragm. If I clip those wires, one on each side, your diaphragm stops working, and then you die. If I take a baseball bat to your back, if somebody takes a baseball bat to your back, the question is where? Oh, it's down here. Not good, but we're all right. Oh, it's way up here. How's he breathing then? That's where he innervates his diaphragm. See what I'm saying? C3 through C5 keeps the phrenic nerve alive. Huh?
Do you die immediately, or
No, hold your breath. 1, 2, 3.
like if they cut those wires?
Yeah. It's just like not breathing, right? Great, hold your breath. 1, 2, 3.
So it'll take 2 minutes.
Why didn't you die?
Because it takes me a minute.
It takes you a minute. And this is actually a very important point we'll talk more about in CPR. You have a lot of circulating oxygen in you. You have a lot of circulating oxygen. They die soon after, for sure. And if you don't put air into their mouth, they definitely will. Karen, you got some?
After, okay, so let's say you did get hit right there, right?
I wouldn't, but
Is there anything? Like, what's the next thing to do?
so you're saying, what if somebody got hit in the area, it disrupted their phrenic nerve and their diaphragm stopped and they stopped breathing? What do you do as an EMT? Mouth to mouth,
Okay.
right?
I just thought it was like I want to know if it was something like irreversible or like you could
It might be, but as an EMT, I can breathe for you.
Okay.
Now, if you're not super keen on mouth to mouth, and I recommend you save that for home, not work, that we will use a BVM or a pocket mask, which is essentially a BVM that you breathe through. But yeah, it's not hard at all to keep somebody alive by breathing for them.
But
Ask-
then when you stop, they're dead.
They don't, well, they'll start dying. Mm-hmm. Did we have a duty to act with this patient if we were this clinician? Yes, we did. What up? Are you looking for this? No way. Oh, you might have a little less honey in there than you started with. Say, Storm, right?
Yeah.
Hey, this is my EMT class. This is Storm. He's from the paramedic class. Where do you work?
Smyrna Fire.
How do you think? How do you like it?
Oh, I like it. Yeah.
Really? How long you been there?
Just over a year.
Okay. What's your? What do I call you? You're a fireman?
Firefighter.
A firefighter, okay. Are you looking for like engineer, driver? Are you looking to go?
Eventually, you gotta wait 3 years.
Really?
Yeah, so I got 2 more.
Okay. Why are you going to medic?
Well, I was a flight medic when I was in the military.
No, Snake.
But the Navy does not certify you with the National Registry.
Yeah, clear.
So, here I am.
Interesting.
But yeah.
Is it because you enjoy medical stuff? You're just
Oh, yeah.
looking for promotion through?
Yeah, I enjoy medical. I was a hospital corpsman.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Flight medicine.
Sure. I got corpsmen all the time. They're like really great at trauma, knew nothing about EKGs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to teach ACLS.
Is that right? No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna have fun in medic class,
I
brother.
know. It's gonna be a long year, but
Cool.
I'm excited.
Good to see you.
Yeah, you guys do good.
All right. Break. Okay, break. Felt like a good time. So we knew we had a duty to act. We were at work. That one's pretty easy. I'm employed as an EMT. Was there a breach of duty?
Yeah, you dropped
Big, whoopsie daisies, right? What do we call that? Negligence, probably. Accident, maybe. Depends on what he said to you right before, doesn't it?
How many times did you drop a patient?
I can only remember one. Probably more than that, but I can only remember one, and it was the day I learned the lesson that when we do sheet draws, like if this is my patient and you've got the sheet with me, right? Before we lift the patient, I'm just like, hey, just quick pull against me. Okay, we have the same sheet, right? Because what happened is they were laying on overlapping sheets, And so I was like, oh, I see one white sheet. He's got one, I got the other. And so I pulled and she kind of came with me and just, blah, you know? And so I was like, I like did this like awkward whatever. She was fine. It was no big deal. But that's the only time I remember dropping a patient. And that was the day I learned. I'm like, okay, just a quick, okay, we got the same thing. Yeah, hey, look, rest assured. If there's any point in here where you're like, wow, Mr. Furon, that's so smart. I would have never thought of that. Most of that is like, yeah, I didn't either one day, then somebody got hurt or died, and I'll never forget. So nothing teaches like failure. All right, so the patient was dropped. Were there damages? Is the patient injured? Specifically C4. Why does that concern me as a clinician, C4 fracture? There is a lot that happens there. C3 through C5 is getting closer. Phrenic nerve. Why do I care about a phrenic nerve? Well, okay, it's just you and me. Ignore them. Phrenic nerve what? It could, yeah, it innervates the diaphragm through that, right? That's why I care. So we can prove that there's damages. Dude has a broken C4. Here's a number one again. I don't know where that came from, but can we prove that this guy that's got a C4 fracture who was in a car accident, that it happened when I dropped him?
No.
I don't know that we
You
can.
didn't record it
Wait,
beforehand.
So
so
we should have body cams like cops.
when you say
100%.
Is that after?
Say it again.
When it says negative, is that after you drop the patient, literally, or?
You're gonna have fun with these tests. We don't know. All we know is what it says.
So while we're recording this, are we recording it at the very end? Because it would have showed that, hey, he had C4 fracture before I dropped him, but if I'd recorded that he had nothing to do with that, and then afterwards I dropped him, and all of a sudden they're like, hey, you didn't record this.
You won't know if he's got a C4 fracture. You can't X-ray or MRI him. You can suspect it based on the protruding spinous process and the fact that he can't feel his legs, but you can't prove it because you can't scan it. In any event, proximate cause is the hardest thing to prove because most of the people that we are going to see are going to be injured or ill in the first place. And so therefore, trying to prove that that injury or illness was exacerbated somehow or created by us is very difficult, right? Is a breach of duty a deviation of your scope or your standard of care? I think so. No, well, I don't know. I suppose it depends. Res ipsa loquitur, the thing speaks for itself. This lowers the burden of proof. What I mean by this is already what I said, essentially, is that nobody's got to prove negligence anymore. You know, if a doctor, if somebody had an injury and they left scissors in them, yeah, I'm pretty sure you weren't born with them and they didn't put it in there themselves. What's the guy, Ed Gein? Who's the guy that pushed a bunch of pins into him? Yeah, they took, after he died, they like x-rayed his body and just found like dozens and dozens of metal pins in his genitals. Yeah. Anyways. Or if you put the hip in completely backwards, it's pretty easy to prove that you were negligent there, doc. That hip belongs on the other side. Now, abandonment, which is a type of negligence, is you terminating care of a patient when you shouldn't have, right? Just like all the other negligence, it depends on what occurs and who pursues whom, but it could be criminal and it could be civil. Let me check my next slide here. Okay, we better talk about it for a second. What this means essentially is I'm dispatched 123 Sesame Street. I show up for a chick that's got difficulty breathing. She says she doesn't want to go, and I'm like, all right, great, because I didn't want to take you, and then I leave. I have made patient contact. I am required to either get a signature saying I have transferred care, or get a signature from her saying she didn't want my care in the first place. As I have gotten neither, I have abandoned my patient. Now, if the person didn't call, they're not your patient in a sense. If they're not injured and they didn't call. Careful on writing this one down. Let me expound on it a little bit. Basically, if Rossi was a new hire at the company I worked at, I'd say, hey, primarily you need to pay attention to these three instances. If you pick up a patient who wants to go to the hospital, you need to get them to sign saying they wanted it, right? That's how we bill them. That's how we prove that everything was on like it. But when that happens, you also can't just say that they wanted care. You have to prove that you handed them off to somebody because only a doctor can terminate that care. So we need their signature and the signature of a nurse or a doctor, okay? Now, if that patient refuses, here's our other instance, Rossi. If that patient refuses, we need proof that they refused. We need them to sign saying, no, I don't want this care. And then Rossi says, well, what if somebody called for their neighbor? Do I need a refusal then? I'd say, I recommend you get one. But not technically. I show up, bop, bop, bop. Hey, ma'am, how you feeling today?
Fine.
Okay, well, that's odd because your neighbor called saying that you needed help. Can I assess you? Would you like anything?
No, I'm good.
No, okay. Well, she's not a patient. She didn't ask for help and she's not injured. I don't need a refusal. You were never a patient. I'd probably still try to charm you into getting one because I'd rather have a legal document saying that you said no. But if you become a patient because you're injured and you ask for help, so you can be essentially either. You can be an unconscious person who's injured who obviously can't ask for help, or you can be a person who's asking for help and has no complaints. I would like to go to one hospital, please. Why? I don't want to talk to you about it. Are you hurt or injured? Not really any of your business. Would you please take me? Yes, sir. It'll be my pleasure. Easiest report I write all day. Right? So if they ask for help or they're injured in that case, then they become a patient. But if it's neither, then they're not. Jada.
What would you write down in the report if they did say that?
So there's a lot more to be. Mr. Harris will go into far more depth on this. But how are you saying in my situation where Rossi called for Myrna?
Yeah.
Put pretty simply, I would again. Let's assume she was like, no, dude, and I'm closing the door right now. Goodbye. Right. So I couldn't even communicate. Let's just say that for sake of argument. I would just document a little paragraph that said, we arrived to find a woman standing in a blah blah, appeared X age. She, full standing, was unable to. Assess, was unable to refuse these things, blah, blah, just everything about it so that, because you have to write, if anybody owns a gun and has pursued the legal ideas around it, we know that every bullet has a lawyer attached to it, right? You gotta know that whatever you're shooting at, something is behind it and you're responsible for that too, right? And so also, every contact I make with people, I write all my reports like I'm standing before the Supreme Court. What will I wish I had said during that? There she was, looking pretty mean, had no interest. She seemed fully alert and oriented, but wouldn't allow assessment. Attempted contact with a neighbor. There was no answer. I relayed to PD. I mean, just as much so that when I'm sitting on the court and they're just like, she died later. I'm like, I don't know. All I said was like, showed up. She said no. I'm like, okay, that's not a good document, right? We almost never have to tell new hires or new EMTs, like, you said too much. It's too much. It is almost always you didn't say enough. And nothing will teach you this lesson like standing in front of a judge while some lawyer rips you to pieces.
Has that ever happened to you?
No, because I write good reports, but I've sat in front of a bunch of lawyers. I'm not offended. It's just worth you knowing. No, it's never happened to me in that regard. I have gone to many depositions and a bunch of court cases, but my reports have always been pretty thorough. Part of how I learned that is my partner left her computer open and I ate a banana in the middle of her narrative. And she later, years later, had to go to the Supreme Court and they were asking her why she would write had a banana in the middle of her narrative. And she called me and she's like, do you remember that day? I can't imagine why I would have put that. And I was like, I don't know, sweetie, were you eating a banana? Like, mm-hmm. And so then the lawyer was like, well, if you put this in mistakenly, is it possible the other things you said that you claim are true were also mistakenly put in? Whoopsie. Yeah.
Now she's in prison.
Yeah, mm-hmm, yeah, she's running train at the booty house. But that, you shouldn't leave your computer open. You shouldn't, yeah, some lessons teach themselves. I agree. No, I didn't do that. Most of what I just said is a lie. But it becomes very important to document appropriately, right? And to make sure that if you don't write it down, then it didn't happen. So be mindful of that. Now, assault and battery. Assault is the threat of bodily harm. And quite frankly, I think it's even outside of, in more specificity of the law, it's merely threat of contact, right? In summary, this is assault, right? My fist in the air, I'm implying I'm going to harm him. But so is like, hey, if you don't listen up, I'm going to hit you. Okay, those are both assault. Now, battery is if I connected the hit. But battery is also simply this, just say no. Hey, I'm going to go ahead and touch your arm. Is that okay?
No.
And then I touch him. Now, him falling deeply in love is completely aside of the point. He said no, I touched his arm, that's battery.
So he could sue you for that.
He could.
I will.
Yeah, fair enough. It's recorded, so great. Okay, well, then you're gonna have to get taught by some lesser human, so good luck. But in any event, it is very difficult to prove. Look, if you have to err on one side, err on the side of patient care, right? Now, if a patient says no, that means no. If they're a competent individual, listen to what I'm saying. But if you are ever on the fence, almost nobody is going to jail or losing their licenses because they said, I know they said they didn't want this care, but I did it anyways. I tried to help. And they're like, well, you shouldn't. Err on that side if you must, because error on the other side definitely leads to ruin. What I mean by that is I forget to document something appropriately. The wife is there, the husband is dying, right? The husband is like, I don't want any help, I don't want any help, or maybe I'm kind of creating a bad example. I don't want any help, I don't want any help. And the wife is like, I don't want any help either. And I'm like, okay, then we won't. And then 2 years later, I get a court summons because she's like, I said he needed help. And I'm like, no, you said not help. And now it's like, he said, she said kind of thing. Or I suppose the inverse is I gave a guy epi, he said he didn't want it, he goes on to live, and the judge is like, look, it was difficult. You had swollen lips. He didn't know, he's not in a scope to understand ACE inhibitors or lisinopril. He gave you epi against your will, and you're welcome to pursue him through a civil action, but I see no crime, no harm, no foul here. Where the reverse is that they die, and the wife is like, why didn't you help? And you're like, well, because I don't know anything about ACE inhibitors, and he said, so it's like, essentially, if you have to err, I recommend erring on the side of patient care. But when a patient says no, that means no. And it can be as subtle as, and part of the reason why we were talking about how to form our language and assessment is that you don't say, may I please check your blood pressure? Ugh, no. Okay, well, I really need to, so now I don't know what to do, right? We want the assertive language. Look, you've got a headache, and that might mean your blood pressure is too low or too high. I don't want you to pop a vessel, so I'm gonna check your blood pressure now. Okay. It's still a question, it's still consent, but one of those paints a picture, right, Lan?
I was going to ask, is it ever the case that the wife can refuse for an unconscious husband, or do you just wait in the car in that scenario until he passes out and then grab him and go to the hospital?
The question is essentially oh no, I don't have it.
Is she the attorney?
Can a family member or wife specifically override probably what was established as a DNR or a wish from a husband, right? I don't remember. But because I forget every year, I think I have a note on it. Okay, what you're talking about is revocation. In the state of Georgia specifically, only the patient or the patient's healthcare agent can revoke a DNR. And so I would assume that translates in a similar sense. Like let's be very specific about your hypothetical. I've got a husband and a wife, right? I don't know what religion that makes me, but no. Essentially, I'm on scene with a husband and a wife. The husband says, I don't want help. You with me? I don't want help, so he dies. And then what? Take me through the rest of the metaphor.
He's not dead, he's dying.
He's dying.
He's passed out now.
He's passed out. And I'm like, well, he said no help.
He said no help before he passed out.
Right.
She's still saying, hey, he said no help.
Yeah, I mean, so I'd probably do it anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I would probably do it anyways, and she'd be like, no, and I'd be like, hey, I need PD to remove this considerate bystander, the family member or whatever, and I would love to see him in court and be like, I said die, and I would be like, sure, but this cavalier behavior on my part is because he didn't have a DNR.
Okay.
Because I'm like, yeah, but it is my assumption that I don't know that you really thought you were gonna die. And when you were dead, since you don't have a DNR, I'm gonna fix you up.
So unless they have the DNR with them, you can't let them die?
I think that is the fair assumption. Now, it is probably defensible in court to say, well, he said, I wanna die. It is profoundly difficult to prove that. If you've got a legal document that says, I was born here, and this is my name, and on this date, easy to prove. If you say, I also have a DNR that I went and talked to a doctor, got it stamped and notarized, or whatever the heck, that is also easy to prove. I definitely will not withhold care on somebody that doesn't have a DNR just because they told me they don't want it. I will while they're conscious, but when you're unconscious, I'm going to operate from this premise of you don't have a defensible legal document. No one is going to believe me when I say this. But moreover, I'm not entirely convinced that you believed what you said and that a reasonable person who was dead but didn't pursue a DNR wouldn't want care. And yes, it's implied consent. And even if I'm wrong in every way, I'll sleep like a baby, knowing I'm going to court saying, then the guy died and I fixed him anyways. And so what I'm saying is that if you're gonna err on the side of patient care. If you're like, it's kind of murky, I'm like, yeah. Maybe, but now talk to me about when everyone on scene disagrees with you. Woof. That has happened. Yari?
I usually see, like, this maybe in the hospital, you see a patient are labeled DNR or DNI. Do you ever come across, I guess, they're just DNI, like they want to be
Yep.
registered, but no information?
Yeah, if I don't answer your question when we get to advanced directives and pulse, you let me know. But yes, you can have very specific advanced care methods. Now, there's a difference between false imprisonment and kidnapping. Pretty simply, these are kind of some fancy words, but all I mean to say is this. False imprisonment is essentially wrongfully holding somebody doesn't want to be held. If I move you from that space you didn't want to be held and continue to hold you, it's kidnapping, right? If Emily gets up to leave and I'm like, ma'am, no, stay put or whatever. And she's like, I'm a completely competent and oriented adult. You forced me to be confined in here. That's inappropriate. Or maybe more to the point, she says, hey, I got a tummy ache, I want to go to the hospital. I get in my ambulance, right? She's like, I've changed my mind, let me out. And I'm like, no, you have to stay. Well, it's false imprisonment because I'm not letting her out of my ambulance. When I start transporting, I'm now kidnapped her. Yeah. False imprisonment is holding them in place. But kidnapping is movement. Now, what the difference is there as far as legal ramifications, I have no idea. I have a suspicion kidnapping is not only more, but much harsher. Rossi?
If they're drunk, we consider them competent?
Let me ask you, if they're drunk, are they competent?
It depends how drunk I am.
That's right. I like that you put yourself in the scenario. I get it. I mean, seriously, you can be drunk and know everything that's going on in some ways, but you can also be drunk and know nothing about what's happening. The drunkenness is irrelevant. It's whether or not you are oriented.
Because you said we don't like necessarily test to like say, like see if you're drunk, so we can't really say that you're.
I don't care if he's drunk. What I care about is if he's mentally competent, right? He's like, look, man, I don't want to be here anymore. And I'm like, hey, where are you? What's your name? And what's your name? He says all the right things. I'm like, look, it's advisable you go to the hospital. You seem like a mess. But I can't make him, no matter what he drank, took, or did. But if he's like, I'm a tuna fish and you're a rocket ship, I'm like, oh, I don't care if you drank, smoked, or anything. You're coming with me, babe. That made no sense.
Is it right to ask them what the time is whenever you're asking some questions? It's like,
I think that's fine.
What's your name, where are you at, and what the time is? 'Cause
You're going to hear this a lot. Alert and oriented times 3, alert and oriented times 4. Mr. Fearon doesn't teach 3 or 4. I teach alert and oriented or not. Some hospitals will use 3 out of 3, some use 4 out of 4. When you call a hospital and say my patient is alert and oriented times 3, it begs the question, 3 out of 3 or 3 out of 4? Because the system uses both. I avoid the number completely. We're en route to your facility with a patient who is alert and oriented. Now, depending on if your metric goes to 3 or 4, I've just implied it's all the way up. We're en route to your facility with a patient who is not alert or oriented. Again, I don't care about your number scale. I just implied the same thing. So I don't use 3 and 4. You're welcome to. Everybody else seems to.
Can you be, I guess, alert but not oriented? Or
Yep.
do you have to go together? Like,
Yeah, that was my altered mental status versus altered level of consciousness. Here's me being completely alert, no level of consciousness change, but not oriented. Right now, we are at my house. I'm like, oh, I'm completely, yeah, depending on how you slice that one. I am completely alert, but I am not oriented to place. Right? Defamation. Defamation is essentially the statement that injures a person's reputation. And this is one of two things, and this is what you need to remember, how to differentiate slander from libel. Put pretty simple, you say slanderous defamation, you write libel in a letter.
So basically, if I say something, it's slander, but if I put it online, so it's supposed to be just now.
Okay, and I'm glad you brought that point up. You are exactly right. If I said it, okay, now what happens if I put on Facebook, John said he was drunk and then smashed into a tree? I wrote it down. Now, he might have said something, but I wrote it down. Maybe not in a letter, it doesn't really translate that way, but me saying something is one thing. Me writing down what somebody said, that's libel. In either case, they're defamation.
Would it be libel against John or the person you said it about?
It would be about the person that committed libel, because we don't know if John is a real person or ever said that thing.
So you wrote it down on Facebook. You're liable.
Yep. I'm committing libel, I think, not liable. Yeah. Yep. Am I committing slander? Am I committing libel? Yeah. If you're liable for damages, just a different word. So we just did this. Oh no. I mean, that's reasonable. Here's a question you might see. What are you committing while making a false statement? Defamation, slander. Which one is right?
I would probably say the same thing, aren't slander and libel both a form of defamation? It's a trick question.
Oh, say it again, Emily. So here's an important test-taking point. I think what most people do is, what are you trying to do when you look at a test question? You're going through the answers to find the which one? Oh, okay, we're close there. Okay, you are not looking for the right answer. You are looking for the one that gets you points. There are two right answers on here. One of them gives you points. If I made you guess one of them, which one would you guess? Why? Because it's more specific, right? Could this be libel? No, because it's spoken. Could it be defamation? Is it clearly slander? There's test taking 101.
I guess you can't commit defamation.
I don't know.
Now, if you had just put making a false statement without the spoken part, would you liable then? Or does it still kind of depend?
If
So if it was just false statement, it would just be defamation.
false statement, it would be defamation because we don't know whether it's spoken or written. Yeah. Whew, I see you, Emily. Whew. That's some good think. That's some good think. Good Samaritan law. This is for people that don't have a duty to act. If you don't have a duty to act, you are hoping for a Good Samaritan law. I don't have time to tell you the whole story, but there is this wonderful story in an old book I used to read where people would be going from one country to another country, and they hated so bad the country in between that they would walk all the way around it. Samaria, right? And so there's this old story in that old book that talked about people passing somebody from Samaria, essentially a Samaritan, right? I don't remember the beginnings of it or the specificity, but long story short is a righteous man walks by, a preacher walks by, and eventually some form of miscreant criminal walks by, and only one of them helps this person. Who is it? The criminal, right? In a certain sense. Now, I've grossly misappropriated that story, but in any event, the idea is this. We are operating as a good faith nation that if you're trying to do well for somebody, we're going to protect that. We want people to look out for each other. Good Samaritan does not usually almost ever apply to you when you have a duty to act. So this is for lay people, not civilians. Civilians is not military. We are not, what's the opposite of that? Civilian and, is there an opposite? I don't know the term. In any event, essentially militant, I guess. I hear people in EMS say all the time, they're like, oh yeah, but they're civilian. I'm like, you're a civilian. You don't carry a gun, you're not a part of the government. Even cops, I tell my wife all the time, she's like, well, we were there 2 civilians. I'm like, you're a civilian. You're not in the military. Lay people is the term. In any event, acted in good faith, no expectation of compensation. If you're working, you expect compensation. If this guy says, let me give $5 for just taking me to the hospital. No, thank you. No, thank you. I don't need that $5 that bad to run the risk of neglecting my Good Samaritan law. And you also have to make sure that you don't commit some type of gross negligence. Like, but I was just trying to help. I'm like, you stepped on him 4 times. That's a bad. Yes, sir.
Do Samaritan laws apply to us still while we're off duty?
Yes. Do Samaritan laws apply to me while I'm not off duty? Yes, because you don't have a duty to act. Now, it depends on your state. Some states, a Good Samaritan will protect you if you have a duty to act. Some of them expect you to act. It depends on your state, but by and large, that's how we slice it. T?
So I was told sometimes to not state what you are in a Good Samaritan.
I don't know enough about it to say that. I would.
Just because,
I would, because I want them to trust me. And just know that a lot of this stuff, if you do the right thing in the right way, you're likely going to be okay, or often more likely to be okay. If you go in there and you do some dumb stuff, say some dumb stuff, or they get hurt in a worse way, dude, better of you not to existed.
Like if you're on an airplane and you're like, there's a doctor in the house.
I'm like, no, but I'm a medic. I know some things, but not many. Absolutely.
And that would fall under Good Samaritan?
Yeah, because I'm not employed. Depends on whose airspace you're over, I imagine, or how that stuff works. I don't know. Look, did I tell you a story about being on the ramp at Kennestone and learning how to be the kind of man that goes the other way? It's a brief story. The summary is this. We get out of the ambulance. I hear a scream. I turn to look at my partner and ask, what the hell was that? He's gone. He's already over at the car. And I learned that day there are basically two types of people. Those that figure out what's going on before they leave, or those that say, look, who better than me? I trained for this. I'm ready, right? So I definitely operate on that way. I hear screaming at Kroger or whatever. I'm like, dude, you have any idea how many people I've tackled? How many people I've sedated? I'm like, who is in this room, not room, but who is in this grocery store that's done stuff like this? I'm like, yeah, I might get hurt or I might hurt them, but like, surely I'm the most equipped for this. I spent a lot of time doing that. And if you're like, well, I'm not, I'm like, well, then get there. Do that. Talking to lawyers. I'm not saying don't do it, but what I will say is this. If a lawyer ever calls you, you tell them to meet you at your headquarters. Hey, this is Mr. Brown representing Brown, Brown, and Brown. We'd like to talk to you about your, call that happened on the 5th. I'm like, absolutely. Look, I work at, Puckett EMS. Here's the number for our HR. Please contact them and set up an arrangement. I'll be happy to meet with you. We do not know who is calling us. We do not know what they're about to talk about. If it's a real lawyer, they'd be happy to meet you at HQ. They'll set it up 2 weeks later, because not only do you want to be in a neutral space, or at least a space that can protect you. Sometimes companies have lawyers to protect you. And also you want to contact your company and say, hey, please pull my PCR and print it for me. I want to be able to look at what happened while I'm talking to this lawyer instead of trying to remember what happened 3 to 5 years ago. So if a lawyer calls to talk to you about a call, you say, my pleasure, and I want to help in every way. Please contact my company. They'll set up a meeting. Prosecution or defense, you want to know whether or not, part of this is, I think this is just me noticing that there's some language on this in the vocab. I don't care that you know as a clinician, but I probably saw vocab and said, oh, we got to talk plaintiff and defendant. Right, so we got to determine whether or not this is the person that is pursuing you for damages or harm or somebody else. That's your defendant. The plaintiff is the person working with the prosecution saying, hey, we're going to go ahead and pinch this guy. So make sure you understand essentially the difference in those words. I'm not saying don't talk. I am saying say only what you must. I think a common sentiment with police is like, dude, don't say a word. As a person that's run afoul of the law a decent amount of times in my youth, that's not the best language. I'm not saying don't talk to cops. It pisses them off big time. And not all of them hate you. And if you just told them what happened, they'd leave you alone many times. What I'm saying is you answer only what they asked you. If they asked you what time you left the house and you say, well, I think it was Sunday, nope. He didn't say what day. He said what time. Well, it was about noon. Oh, sorry, sir, we're looking for somebody that was coming out around 5. Great. But you might indict yourself if you say too much. So no, don't stay shut. And they're like, dude, if you don't tell me what happened, I'm going to have to take this farther. Just talk to them. But answer what they asked you and nothing more. And that goes for EMS as well. I was talking about you as a person. That goes for when you're working in EMS. The term deposition, essentially, I went to these a billion times, way more often than court cases. Sometimes things get settled out of court, and a deposition is essentially just lawyers talking to you to try to formulate some documents and get an idea of what happened to kind of pursue the legal action. So like I said, if Brown, Brown, and Brown calls me, I say, hey, let's go ahead and set up a meeting at my HQ. He stops in there, Larry Brown Brown, right, son of Brown Brown. He comes in, he wants to talk to me, say this is a deposition. We've both got my PCR. He's going to gather information and take sworn statements, but it's reasonable for you to consider a lawyer, though admittedly, I never consider my own lawyer. Most of these things are kind of handled simply. But just know that depositions are legal and that things you say there do have impact and can be remembered. But I've done depositions a bunch of times. Sit down with a lawyer, he goes through your PCR, he's like, hey, why did you give epi here? Or can you tell me what the officer said? Or when fire got there, how did they look or whatever? And you kind of have that discussion. And maybe that's the end of it. I've had way more depositions than I have had court cases. Was?
Going back to you saying that you think we should have body cams.
I think EMS should have body cams, yeah.
What is the legality of us having our own body cams for that, shift?
Yeah, so a couple of things. Because Georgia is a one-party state, as long as two people are having a conversation, and if a person can record them if they're part of that conversation, and they don't have to tell you. Like, Sydney could be recording all of my lectures and never need to tell me because she's part of this conversation. And so that probably applies to EMS in that way. But now you run afoul of, number one, company policy. Does the company allow you to do that? Does your medical director authorize these things? Do you have protocols on taping and stuff? And it also puts you in the wheelhouse of now medical legal problems like HIPAA. So in short, don't wear a body cam without approval of your medical director. But and that's probably why we don't have it. I still think that we should have body cams. Something happens. Half the reason I record these lectures, not half, but 90% of it is just for you and to help you and stuff. But it changes the way I talk. I'm more respectful. I'm a little more careful. You know what I mean? I think people getting recorded has got a way of affecting how they communicate in a more professional way. And it's been good for me because, buddy, it's hard. There are three, let's call it, two types of consent. I made that one real small, so hopefully you wouldn't see it. Basically, we have informed and implied consent. And if you left here knowing only about informed and implied consent, you'd be fine. I find that when we add language that's in the book on the other things, it makes things harder, not easier. Now, as far as informed consent goes, informed consent is when you have a mentally competent person. That means they're A&O. What does that mean? Alert and oriented, right? They're alert and oriented. It also means they're not impaired by either illness, injury, or intoxicants. Can anybody describe to me why a person might not be mentally competent if they're injured? Okay, but let me ask it maybe more to the point. Injured, but not in any way altered. What I mean is you might say, oh, well, if I lose enough blood, it'll make me confused. No. I'm saying they're completely alert and oriented. All they have is an injury. They are still not mentally competent. Tom? Life-threatening, you're close, Evan. Pain. Essentially, if I've got a fractured pelvis and I'm just, and I know my name, I know where I am and stuff, I'm like, dude, this guy can't make a reasonable decision. He's screaming at the top of his lungs. He's in overwhelming pain, right?
Like temporarily mentally insane or something?
So the essence of what you're saying is true. What I would prefer you to say is he was so overwhelmed emotionally and because of the pain that he was not mentally competent. But it doesn't necessarily imply that he was insane. That's a different issue. Now, I have almost never treated somebody under implied consent because they were in so much pain. It's just almost never happened, but I suppose it is possible. Now, that means essentially that this patient needs to both know what we want to do and then understand the risks and benefits. Here's how we make sure that we have informed consent. First, we need to tell a patient that we have to acknowledge their symptoms, okay? Oh, my head hurts. Okay, sir, you've got a headache. We've now made them aware that a medical professional has identified a symptom, okay? Then we have to describe their condition. Because you said you have a headache, that might be a sign of a stroke. They did not go to school for this. They don't know that a headache might be a stroke. Or even if they did, it's our job to inform them. Sir, you got a headache. That could be a stroke. By the way, a stroke can do 3 Ds. If you're going to get a refusal on somebody, you make sure you communicate these things to them. A refusal requires that you have an informed patient who you told them about their symptoms, conditions, and then the 3 Ds, death, deformity, and disability. And we don't talk a lot about documentation. This is about as far as we go, a little mention of refusals, and that's just because I think it's so poignant and it's left out of many of the book's stuff. Listen to me when I tell you, I think you probably all think that if you're trying to get somebody to go to the hospital, then the easiest way to do that is to tell them they're gonna die. It isn't. If you want to convince somebody to go to the hospital who doesn't want to go, you tell them there's something worse than death. It's living with deformity or disability. Imagine, like, hey, how's your relation with your mom? Hate my mom. Imagine you had this stroke, then she moves in with you. She's here all day, every day, because you can't get up out of the john. Right? Some young girl, she's like, oh, I cut on myself or whatever. I'm like, baby, if you don't go in right now, you're gonna die. I know I'm gonna die, nitwit. That's why I did that. I said, no, here's the thing. You got me today, and I'm super good at my job, which means you might live. And when you live, you're gonna live with this kind of gnarly scar all the way down, sweetie. You don't want that. Come with me. We're gonna fix it up soon, and it's gonna go away. We got it. You want people to go to the hospital, you tell them they're gonna live. That'll get them. They're gonna live with disability or deformity. You can call it vanity if you want. I don't think that's fair. Now, expressed consent is a type of I think it can be both. I don't think I ask a narrow question, but expressed consent could probably be both. What it definitely is verbal and nonverbal. Alicia, may I take you to the hospital? Okay, great. Now, I have informed her that she had a headache, she might have a stroke, she said she wants to go, that's informed consent, right? Now, Alicia can't speak, but she still wants to go. Hey, Alicia, can I take you to the hospital? She nodded her head, nonverbal, expressed, informed consent. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, chances are she's gonna sign at the end, so I don't need her to nod her head, but yeah, I think that's wise. She nodded her head yes when I said, do you want help? The big emphasis here is not really on expressed consent, other than you should know that it can be nonverbal, right? If, for example, Leah, you want to get well, but you can't speak. I say, hey, may I check your blood pressure? And she just gives me her arm. That is an expressed consent. It's also informed because I told her what was going on. The real hook here is trying to determine, do we have implied consent? Implied consent means your patient is mentally incompetent. This means they have AMS or ALOC. No, what's AMS? Thank you, Noah. Carter, what's ALOC? No? Okay. Which one is this? I am a tuna fish. It's a mental status issue. I'm expressing confusion. I am wearing a tie. I mean, it was accurate, but it was lethargy. It was a level of consciousness issue. I'm less conscious, okay? Now, if you get a patient that is confused or disoriented or whatever, that's a violation, or it's mental incompetence due to altered mental status. It might be a level of consciousness issue. Did anybody hit snooze this morning on their alarm? And if you had, might you have been looked at as an altered level of consciousness if I came in there, started grilling you? You'd be like, dude, hey, I need a minute. Okay, so don't think that every variation of level of consciousness means your patient's, I'm not gonna scoop Yari up because essentially he was real tired. That's not lethargy, it's just sleepiness. You see what I'm saying? Mostly I mean those that are unable to operate, or more to the point, unconscious. Now, minors are also mentally incompetent, and if you've ever been around one, you know I'm speaking the truth. Now, they are only deemed essentially mentally incompetent legally. So it's not all minors, it's essentially minors without the presence of a guardian or legal authority. So if I find a 6-year-old in the middle of the woods, the first thing I'm gonna try to do is say, hey, where are your parents? How do I get a hold of them? He says, I don't know, I don't remember their number. Boom, you're coming with me, implied consent. Implied consent is saying, look, a reasonable person who in pursuit of life would want my help. Since you can't communicate that, we are assuming you are a reasonable person who wants my help in pursuing a health. With kids, it is almost never the wrong answer to do a refusal. Err on the side of care and transport. This will become stickier when the kid disagrees with the parent. I want to go, I have a headache, it's because he hit me. He always says that, it's costing me hundreds and thousands of dollars in ambulance bills. We're not going to the hospital. oh boy. Well, the kid can't make a decision, but if he's right, you see what I'm saying? That's a call PD moment. Like, okay, you can either come with me or I'm going to contact the police. They're going to come here and sort it out. And they are never as charming as me. Right?
Would we call PD or
Absolutely.
PS as well?
Dispatch, this is 123. 123, go ahead. Hey, I need police en route to my address. Non-emergent. I've got a disagreement between a minor and a legal guardian. Understood. Dispatch, can I get an ETA on that? Yeah, 30 minutes. Hey, sir, may I sit on your couch and start my report? I'm just gonna hang out here because police are coming. Hell no, get out. All right, I'm gonna be in the driveway. No, you aren't. Great, I'm gonna be out in front on the street. We're gonna wait till PD comes, we'll sort things out. But at any moment, if you change your mind and you wanna skip adding another department to this, you come knock on my door, we'll get you out of here. We'll take care of you.
What if
If
he
they do
leaves?
start saying, do you call them back and say, you know, PD needed, or do you still allow them to come?
Oh yeah, if he was like, oh my God, really, guy? Oh, fine, let's go to the stupid hospital. I'd be like, you can cancel PD, thank you. Yeah, all right, great. If he's like, fine, get in the ambulance, blah, 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 I'd be like, nah, you can keep him coming. Look, we're gonna drive separate now.
What if he like gets in his car and then leaves with the kid while you're...
Is what it is. I mean, I'd still call PD and be like, hey, would you contact PD, let them know they left northbound 1832 or whatever the case.
License plate,
If you, whatever you got, yeah. But at that point, I mean, you can't chase them, or at least you shouldn't. No one's gonna back that play. Sorry, baby. Godspeed.
But if the kid is saying he's being hit, like, wouldn't you just want to have police there?
Yes, that's why I called them.
Because you said.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, not necessarily. Like, I do think that legal action needs to take place, but I don't think, see, in my opinion, police are largely like the emergency room. They're the legal emergency room. I'm like, this is a legal action, but I don't need to take them to an ER. Like, I don't need a cop here. Everybody's chill. He just did something wrong, maybe. But it does mean that I need to that I report it because we're mandatory reporters, which means some cop's gonna knock on his door at some point. But I just don't think we need to now. How are we doing time-wise? I almost want to just ignore involuntary consent. It is a thing, but here's the summary of it. Like, if I'm a police officer and I detain Emily, detain meaning like I'm a legal authority and I'm like, sit down while I figure this out. That's a form of detainment, right? Doesn't have to be cuffs, it can be. Like, sit down while we figure this out, right? And she's like, oh, I have chest pain. She still has rights. She still gets to say, I want a hospital, I want an ambulance and stuff like that, right? So it doesn't always mean that there's suddenly now involuntary consent just because a cop is there. This patient actually has a ton of rights. Now, if that patient is confused or altered, okay, now it's implied consent put pretty simply. Involuntary consent is and I do not have a test question on this, I don't think, but it is very specifically about when a cop is making a decision where a person isn't mentally incompetent and still wants medical control. Like, they're like, no, he's completely alert and oriented. I just watched him pound 4 bags of mystery powder. I'm calling somebody right now. Now, all I'd say is here's an important sentiment to be made with police. Look, you're gonna see these guys left and right, and maybe all day long, and maybe for the rest of your career. Keep that in mind as you talk to them. Allow some professional courtesy, right? Now, sometimes and very often, they'll want you to take a drunk guy to jail because they don't want to to the hospital because they don't want to spend 3 hours at the jail for just another drunk. That sucks. I get it. But here's how I recommend you approach all of these situations when a police officer has somebody in custody, is you go first to the cops and you feel out what they want. Hey man, I know you got a guy in the back of your truck. What are you thinking here? Hospital, jail, where you at? And let them tell you so you know how to communicate with them. Because you don't want to go in there being like, dude, we're here to take care of this guy. You want him to go to the hospital? He's like, no, I want him to rot in prison. And I'm like, oh. But you also don't want to go in the opposite and be like, oh, this guy just trying to skip jail or whatever. And he's like, no, man, he's sick. Come take care of him. Just figure out what the tone is so you know how to speak the language, right? You know, I come up and I'm talking to Andrew. He's an officer. He's got someone in the back of the truck. He pulled him. Guy was waving all over the lines and stuff. I'm like, hey, brother, is this a guy in the back of your truck? Yeah, okay. What are we thinking here? You want him to go with me or are you trying to take him?
I'll let you take him.
You let him take him? Okay, well, why don't I do this? I'm going to go evaluate him, see what he wants. If I don't see anything medical there, then we'll kind of have a different conversation. Right? You see what I'm saying? Like, I'm coming in easy with him. I'm not like, he's a patient and he has every right and authority. And the guy's like, tases me, you know? Like, Okay, you're very, huh?
You'd love that.
I kind of would. Yeah, I've been threatened to be arrested 3 times by cops for patient care in this county. Yeah, dude. It's wild because I have an aggressive stance of patient care. I remember my wife saying once, like, yeah, I was talking to my sister. That's how my wife talks. I was talking to my sister and she was like, yeah, it was something about sedation and tackling patients. And she was like, well, that's kind of what Steven does, right? And my wife was like, no. I told her, I was like, no, he doesn't like chase people and then tackle them and then sedate them and stuff. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? I've done that hundreds of times. She's like, really? I'm like, yeah, I mean, I don't talk a lot about work. I just try to absorb as much poison as I can without giving it to somebody else. But yeah, babe, I'm pretty good at it. But, so I go up to a patient, again, they're out, I can remember one of them, we were out in front of I don't know where we were, some subdivision somewhere, and this person's just, and I'm like, hey, look, you can't make sense of anything. I'm gonna scoop you up and take you to the hospital. And the guy's like, I don't wanna go. And I'm like, right, but I do, and what I want matters more. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab you. I'm gonna take you over here to the ambulance. We're gonna go to the hospital. We're gonna meet a pretty nurse, get a free meal. It's gonna be awesome, dude, trust me. And the cop was like, you can't do that. And I was like, yes, I can. And in fact, I have to. And they're like, if you touch this guy, I'm gonna arrest you. And I was like, okay, let's slow down. I said, look, if your mom was in the middle of nowhere, nobody knew her, she wasn't making any sense, wouldn't you want a medic to take her somewhere where you could find her and make sure she was safe? She was like, if I had a medic on scene with my mom, I would want him to follow the law. And I was like, okay, well, 2 things. I operate under an emergency doctrine. You do not. You operate under the law in that regard. You look for criminal activity. It is irrelevant to me. This patient is not alert and oriented, which means not only is it good that I take them, I have to take them. And they're like I said, you grab them, you're going down. I was like, oh, well, okay. Let me call my medical director. We'll take this step by step. And I said, I really recommend you call your boss because I definitely know my job. And I was like, quite frankly, I'd have a lot of fun going to court for this. It wouldn't bother me a bit. Telling the judge that I was doing my job. So I got on the horn with Kennestone, I think, and I said, hey, looking for a doctor? They said, yeah, like, give us a second. I wish I remembered her name. I always thought she was kind of cute after this. Whew. She said, hey, this is Dr. Denaya, something like that, I was like, okay. I was like, hey, look, Dr. D, we got this fellow out here. He's not alert, he's not oriented, all these different things. She's like, great, why aren't you bringing him to me? So, well, here's the thing. I want to bring him, but he don't want to go. I was going to scoop him up, but I got a cop on scene saying it's not legal and she's going to arrest me. She said, all right, well, give her my name. She arrests you. You tell her, come get me, arrest me too. I was like, I said, man, if I wasn't married to a towering inferno of a woman, I'd come find you, Doc. Holy moly. That was the hardest thing I'd ever heard a doc say. So I walked over to the cop. I said, look, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put my hands on this person. I'm going to sweep their legs and take them gently to the ground. And then I'm going to sedate them and haul them out of here. But the moment you touch me, I'm going to stop. Right? So the moment you tell me I'm being detained or arrested, I'm going to stop. So let's walk this through slowly so no one gets hurt. She's like, fine. I was like, all right. Right before I put my hand, she's like, oh, for Jesus Christ, I'll take him. And puts it in the truck. And then she left. And it was like over just like that. And I was like, dude, holy crap.
Wait, she took the patient?
She took the patient.
To jail or to the hospital?
Around the corner, probably. But at that point, I was like, all right. What are you going to
You
do?
don't know if he made it to the hospital.
Nah. Here's your other one. In loco parentis. If you got to pee, go ahead and do it where you got to, but we're running out of time and move fast here. In loco parentis. This is your other Latin phrase. What's the other one? Los subscriber. Very good. Very good. Now, that one meant that the thing was so bad it speaks for itself. This one is when your grandma's watching you when you're a kid. This is when I go to a school and I got to talk to the principal. And the mom and dad we can't get a hold of mom and dad. The kid is still not mentally competent because they're a minor. But in loco parentis is the legal guardian saying, well, look, as a principal or babysitter, adult babysitter, grandmother, they are making decisions for them under this doctrine, even though there's no specific paperwork, right? Like there's no, a 19-year-old girl is watching a 6-year-old boy, he gets sick and he says, I don't want to go to the hospital. And the 19-year-old girl is like, no, he's going. And I'm like, you're not his mom. And she says, yeah, but in loco parentis allows me to. I'm a paralegal. Okay, all right. Right, so in loco parentis essentially just means the people, even if there's not like an official document, there's still the known authority in making decisions for that child. If you get a child that wants something and the legal governing body disagrees, call the cops. Let them sort it out. You do not want to write a report where you're like, so there I was, this kid claiming all these pains, injuries, and sicknesses or abuse, but the dad said no, so I left. I'm like, okay, well, they died of an internal bleed. Now, you suck. Now, there is a type of minor that is allowed to make decisions. This is called emancipated minors. This is when a person isn't 18 but still has legal authority over themselves. Now, listen to me when I say, technically, emancipated minor requires legal documents. If I go to some home, I've been into homes before where the oldest person in there was like 14 years old, raising all of her brothers and sisters. She didn't have paperwork. Of course, she'd never been to court. Why would she have paperwork? So she's not legally an emancipated minor. So it is a document. It's something that you do have to pursue. But this is nationally, this is the general idea. Obviously, you become emancipated as a minor when you turn 18, right? Makes sense. Also, if you get married, right? If you're in a state that allows you to be married before 18, that will emancipate you. You will then make decisions for yourself. If you join the military before 18, that emancipates you. I go to an army base, there's a 17-year-old on scene, parents on saying, hey, he needs to go. 17-year-old says no. Who makes the decision there? Because he's emancipated having joined the armed services, right? Very good. Now, in many places in the country, once you become a parent, it emancipates you. So if you're a 13-year-old man or woman, you've got a kid, it emancipates you, and you can make decisions for yourself. Also, in some cases, if you simply don't have parental support, like the 14-year-old I mentioned, I don't remember Michigan law, it's possible she was technically emancipated minor even without the documentation, I don't know. Now, in Georgia, these are what apply. If you're 18, obviously, married or armed services, got it. In Georgia, if you are a parent, you can make decisions for your baby, not yourself. Your dad mom and dad make decisions for you because you're still a minor, but because you are mom and dad, you can make decisions for the baby, but not yourself. Yari?
Would there be like I guess a case where there's like a conflict, let's say for instance that the parent
Yep.
wants one thing for the baby,
Big time.
considering their dad.
There's a lot to be said about this. Imagine a world where a young girl, she's 14 years old or so, she lives in a house with her dad, they disagree all the time, she got pregnant, and the dad is like, you need to go to the hospital, you need to think of the baby, and she's like, no, I don't. Or maybe more to the point, the dad is like, I pay for everything. I'm not paying for this ambulance, you shouldn't go. And she's like, but I feel sick, I feel sick, I don't know what's going on. The dad's like, no. There's not a lot of right answers there. How I would frame that is like, look, sweetie, I said, hey, partner, you talk to the dad, get as much info as you need. I'm going to talk to Miss, and we're going to kind of separate these two, right? And I'm going to say, hey, look, sweetie, this is pretty easy open and shut case. You feel nauseated. Well, that might be the baby. Georgia law says that because you have a baby and you're making decisions for it, we're going to take the baby to the hospital and you're going to have to come with, right? Now, understand this, though. I don't know your relationship with your father. If what he's saying is true, this is his house and he pays for everything, there's a reasonable conversation to be had about how your relationship is going to change when we go against him. I just want you to consider that. But ultimately, know I'm here for you. And if what you're saying, and I'm telling her to say it, giving her the breadcrumbs, if you're saying you might be concerned for the baby, and so am I, then we can go. But just know that you're going to have to come home here. Do you want to pull the trigger on this or not? So. Yes. Yeah, dude, it's sales 101. Refusals are kind of done like this. Refusals are me saying, I tell you, you should, Javier's like, I need to go to the hospital. I'm like, why? He's like, I got ring fingers, different color nail. I'm like, this man does not need to go to the hospital. Now, that is not my job. I'm in the business of transport. So how I do refusals when I don't think they should go is I tell them they must go. And then I explain to them why they shouldn't. I'm like, hey, you see that ring finger? It's not good, dude. What caused that?
Smashed it.
You smashed it. It's not good, dude. You ought to go to the hospital. Let some doctor look at it, take a scan, make sure it's not broken. I mean, if you know why it happened, if it wasn't, discolored before that, was discolored afterwards, and you're like, isn't it just some bruising? I mean, it might be. If you're like, isn't it gonna be expensive? We're gonna have to go through this whole process. Some dude's gonna tell me what I already know, that I'm gonna lose my fingernail. I mean, you'd probably be right. But you should go to the hospital. Right, so he's like, I don't think I should though. I'm like, you are a genius. Now, I'm not telling you should talk people into refusals. I should probably never say that to a bunch of EMTs that are just starting out. We are in the business of transport, err on the side of transport. But at a certain point, you kind of learn how to speak the language, I suppose.
Are you allowed to mention pricing and stuff? Because I know I've been in an ambulance once and they were like, well, this is like $1,000 ride type deal.
Yeah.
My whole thing was, I'm conscious enough to have somebody drive me there. I don't want to get inside of the ambulance. But they were like, well.
I'll talk about whatever I need to talk about, get what I need done. Now, I've used it to dissuade and persuade people for sure, but usually what it is people don't want to go to the hospital because it costs too much. And so I'm like, hey, I get it. I don't got much money either, and if roles were reversed, I wouldn't want you to take me either. I get that. But let me tell you about a phrase called indigent care. Indigent care is a way of saying that they're gonna go there, they're gonna take care of you, and then they're gonna bill you, and whatever you do with that bill is up to you. But they will care for you, and I recommend that you go and that you solve today's problem today and tomorrow's money problem tomorrow. But what I'm telling you right now is that cough might be dangerous. Let's go to the hospital, figure out where we're gonna get the dollars later. Forcible restraint. Again, it's not just good for you to restrain somebody if it's appropriate. You must. I remember talking to some little bunny medic, brand new one. I was like, all right, let's go get him. He's like, we can't get him. He said he didn't want to. I'm like, he also thinks that he's a peanut butter sandwich. So we kind of have to. And he's like, but can we just grab somebody? And I'm like, if you can convince him to go without grabbing him, you should do that. Since we've been here for 45 minutes, I think it's time to grab. But what I want to get at essentially is this is the method here. I don't know how much we'll do in a lab about it. This is the talk, touch, tackle method, right? Basically what I'm trying to say is that I will talk to you, and sometimes for an hour and a half, as much as my company lets me, right? Just talk and processing, trying to get you to go. If I can't convince you, then I'm gonna touch you. And I'm gonna tell you it's coming. And you would be amazed at how often a disoriented patient will tell you no the entire time and then do everything you say. Right, so if it's like, come over here with me, Moaz, am I playing? All right, go ahead and stand somewhere over by Emily. That's Emily. Shake her hand. Introduce yourself. Nice. All right, that's enough. Yeesh. I'm just kidding. So essentially, now you're completely confused. You're not aggressive. You're completely confused. But pretty simply, you don't want to go to the hospital, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why would I?
Hey, man, I really think you should go.
I can't.
I know you can't, but I can, and that's all you got to worry about. Come on.
Do I have to?
Yeah, man, you should talk to my wife. We got to do everything I say.
Who?
My wife. I'll show you a picture. Will that get you to go? It might get me to stay.
Nah,
All
I'm
right.
fine right here, man.
I get it. Okay. Well, look, every time I show up at somebody's house, I gotta get a set of vital signs. I gotta write a report and stuff. All my crap's in the ambulance. You come over there with me. Can we do that?
Do I have to? I think I want to stay right here.
I get it. Look, honestly, it's a nice area. I want to stay here too, but since I can't and you shouldn't, then let's kind of go over here so we can start, right? So we're kind of just finding every way I can. Now it's 50 minutes have gone by, right? I'm sitting there, I got nothing. Nothing's working, right? And so then I say, okay, well, it's Moaz, yeah?
Yeah.
Hey, Moaz. Okay, so here's what's gonna happen, okay? Now, in here, okay, I guess I'll whisper. So, you still say no, but you do everything I want you to, okay?
Sure, man.
Okay, so I'm just like, okay, look, I know you said you're fine here. I suppose that's a matter of perspective, but I want you to go to the hospital. Why don't you come with me? Right?
Nah.
I get it. Okay, well, look, we've been talking a while. And you've been in a situation like this. You know when you don't take your meds, things get hard. You know it gets harder every day beyond this, right? Okay. So here's what's going to happen now. I'm going to put my hand here on the back of your arm, and I'm going to walk you over here onto the stretcher, okay?
I can just stay right here.
Yeah, I get it. I know. So here we go, okay? Okay, and he's, no, I don't want to go. I'm like, I know, I get it. And yeah, well, honestly, we do whatever we want. And what we want is to have a seat here on this stretcher. I know, buddy, I know, I get it. You would be dumbfounded at how often that happens, right? And you'd be like, but he's, huh? I mean, I can get them usually much earlier than that, but sometimes it takes a while. But the point is take your time, right? Because here's the other situation. Hop up with me. This is a little different here in the sense where now you don't want to be touched and you let me know immediately. You pull away, right? So I'm like, look, we've been talking for a while. You know where this story ends, what I'm going to do. And I'm telling him every step of the way, I'm going to put my hands here on your shoulder so we can go have a sit down. You ready?
Whoa.
Okay. Hey, look at me. Here's where we are now.
Yeah.
You need to go, and you will go. And now I'm going to go talk to a doctor, and then I'm going to come back, and I'm going to put you to sleep, and then I'm going to carry you out of here. Have a seat so you don't fall, okay? Be easy, right? So it's like, I'll talk to you for a long time, and then I'm going to try to kind of move you. But if I get aggression, it's over. Good night. It's over.
Am I getting tackled?
Definitely. We'll talk. I want to have time. We'll talk about how to kind of secure people, how to sweep legs, how to, if we're getting grabbed, how to kind of get behind and pull, like wrist release and locks. Well, my hope is that we got time for that for sure. Thank you so much, Moaz. But the point is you talk to them for a long time. You touch them. You'd be surprised at what they'll do. And if it's not that, you tackle them. Now that message is what the message I give for medics. It is harder to give to EMTs because when I tell an EMT you got to tackle somebody, they stay fighting the entire time. And you end up laying on them for 50 minutes until somebody gets there with sedation. I am very assertive with my medics, and I'm like, pounce on them like a starving man and a Christmas ham. With my EMTs, I'm like, buddy, Javier, Brandon, these are big fellas, they're strong fellas. I said, but even somebody, you pile onto Myrna, I'm like, you'd be surprised what a little meth does to her.
Is it?
And and she's gonna bite and she's gonna claw. You're gonna break a nail. You get bruised. It's a wild experience. And so I would tell the medics, I'm like, don't physically restrain anybody you can't chemically restrain. And you're like, totally. I'm an EMT, and I'm like, okay, then be careful with your physical restraint. Somebody's gonna get hurt. Sorry, Mo.
It's just grappling that's allowed.
Yeah, it's all escalation of force. Don't ever go in thinking like, oh, then I'm gonna take an oxygen tank to his face. I'm like, gross. Look, I remember once I got in an aggressive situation with one of my partners. He was talking like a cop, and he wasn't. You shouldn't do that. Essentially, we went up to a guy who was a slumper. He just slumped over his car. He said to him, hey, sir, step out of the vehicle. I was like, oh, Jesus. Guy got out. He's like, go ahead, turn around, put your hands on the thing. And the guy was like, no, make me idiot, some version of that, And so we got done all this different stuff. We sat down in the truck, and I said, hey, man, firstly, don't talk like you're wearing a bulletproof vest, carrying a taser, a gun, a backup gun, and have the backing of the American government. You don't. And they know that. They're going to pull your card. Secondly, if you ever get in a situation like that and we get into a fight because of some dumb stuff you said, you and me are going to stomp that guy into the ICU. Then we're never working together again because I came here to help people. Now, I'm not going to let your own dumb mouth get you into trouble. We're going to whoop that guy's butt. But we will never work together ever again. Be kind. Be respectful. Anyway, I know it feels like a break time, but I'm gonna keep going. Differences between advanced directives, pulse, and DNRs. We're just push for time. Essentially, we don't super follow advanced directives. Advanced directives is something that a patient gets to with a lawyer to talk about what they want and don't want. What we are following, why do we get to do what we do? Sure, we're certified. Sure, we have a license, but who's telling us we can? A doctor, right? The state. The POLST and the DNR are a doctor saying, this is what I want you to do. And that's why we largely follow those. Meaning, if you don't see a POLST or a DNR, or a POLST with a DNR, then resuscitate them. Now, sometimes advanced directives have DNRs. More importantly than anything, I want you to essentially look for DNRs and POLSTs. These are legal and they are medical. Now with DNRs, POLSTs included, POLSTs that include DNRs, Firstly, they are for the dead, not the dying. A very common misconception even in the field. Well, he's got a DNR. I'm like, well, his heart rate was 26. And they're like, yeah, he was dying. I'm like, but he wasn't dead, which means you definitely should have helped him. Do not resuscitate means for people who are in need of resuscitation, who are dead. Very common in the field for people to be like, man, this is a tricky one. I get calls. Hey, I don't really know what to do here. I got a guy that's like breathing 7 times a minute. His heart rate is 42, but he's got a DNR. And I'm like, totally. Didn't you say he had a pulse? Yeah. DNRs are for pulseless people. Like, what are you talking about? So, in any event, for a DNR to be legally binding or to be actionable, it needs these 3 things. It needs a patient's signature, a doctor's signature, and then proof of condition. This guy has a chronic heart condition. He signed it. I signed it. Please don't bring me back to life. Now, I regret saying this every year because sometimes students gravitate to it, but it doesn't. In some states, it needs to be notarized, but not generally. Also, it's worth noting that Georgia doesn't have an expiration, so if they got one 20 years ago, it's still valid, but in some states, they do have expiration dates, 1 to 2 years. Just be mindful of your own local protocols. Here's a view of a Georgia pulsed. This is something that you might see. We tell patients all the time if they got them to pin them to the fridge, because if you're unconscious, I need to see that stuff. So it's a good idea to check the fridge. Now, are DNR bracelets or a tattoo across the neck of DNR, are they legally binding documents? No. Does it mean maybe you should look around the house for one though? Maybe. Now, never delay patient care looking for a DNR. If everybody's screaming on scene that he's got one somewhere, the best right answer is to work them until they can provide proof. Now, we don't have time essentially to talk about it, but I will say this. You get a little more liberal the longer you've been doing this. In the sense that, like, I got a 92-year-old man with a history of lung cancer. I'm on scene. Fire's like, look, wife said that she's got a DNR, but she can't find it, so we're working him. And I was like, you said 92-year-old with lung cancer, wife's crying in the background saying there's DNR, they can't find, I'm pretty comfortable not working this. And they're like, he doesn't have a document. Now, they're more right than I am. So I said, well, boys, I said, go ahead and keep pushing on their chest, but I'm gonna call a doctor. Call the doctor, and the doctor said, yeah, no, I'm good, dude, we'll let that one lie. I'm like, great. I come back, I say, hey, fellas, we're calling it. Dr. Smith said so. And they're like, all right, doctor said it, we're done. Now, that isn't what they said. What they said was, oh, we got a heartbeat back while you were gone. I was like, you got a heartbeat from doing CPR? They said, no, we gave her epi. I said, I told you not to do epi. I said, all right, we'll just stop doing it. That heartbeat will stop.
Now the DNR doesn't apply.
Huh?
Now he's alive.
Yeah.
What?
Now the DNR doesn't apply.
Yeah. Like, he's alive. Stop doing stuff. I told the wife, I said, hey, we're gonna load him up. I'm not gonna leave him here. I'm gonna load him up. We're gonna get in the truck because we both know he's got a DNR. I'm not gonna do anything. And he's gonna end where we found him. Are you okay with that? She said, yeah. I took him all the way over to the hospital. I called in Kennesaw and said, hey, we've got a cardiac arrest. We are not working it. We are bringing in a corpse. Came in, the doctor was like, all the nurses were like, why aren't you working this guy? I said, because he was dead when we got there. He's got a DNR they couldn't provide. And the doctor was like, why did you bring him here then? I said, because fire on scene wouldn't quit. So he shook my hand. He was like, oh, great job, man. Now, I'm not advising you ignore DNR statuses. The simple and rightest answer is look for the documents that possess both the patient's signature and the doctor's signature, and also the patient's condition. Now, like a Georgia Post, they might reference the hospital. They'll say, the basis for these orders should be documented in the medical record. So that's still got a statement saying somewhere this condition exists. But those 3 things are what's required. HIPAA, we kind of already talked about this. I think enough to kind of briefly move through it, right? If they're involved in their care, easy share, right? Made that little limerick myself just now. Also for treatment, that treatment is what I'm talking about, but also billing. It is okay to share with your own company this information. They don't need a HIPAA signature necessarily because they're involved in the billing of that care. If I call in dispatch and they ask me, if I am calling a hospital and they say, hey, talk to me about the patient, is that a HIPAA violation? No, because they're involved in their care. What if they said, hey, go ahead and give me their first and last name? And I said, no problem. And I gave them the accurate name. Is that HIPAA violation? No. It is. because anyone can be listening to that traffic.
What do you mean?
What I mean is it is not hard to pull up an internet website and listen to all your local radio traffic, hospital, police, and otherwise. Once I've identified the once I've identified the patient, I've now violated HIPAA accidentally because somebody probably heard that. The hospital doesn't need their name and birthday over the air. You give it to them when you get there. EMTALA is for hospitals, not EMS. EMTALA says that we have to both evaluate, stabilize, and transfer every patient as appropriate. They cannot deny care, or at least fundamentals of care. That doesn't apply to EMS. Does that mean that we just do whatever we want? No. What determines whether or not we have to do something? Say it again? Essentially, because those standing operating procedures, policies, and protocols are establishing our duty to act. So we aren't governed under EMTALA, but the hospital doesn't have a duty to act. That's an EMS-specific emergency doctrine language. So we do have a responsibility to treat and transport, but the hospital also does. It's a different bit of language, EMTALA. You are a mandatory reporter. Because you know better, you report the things you see. Neglect or violence on others. She smacks him, that's violence on others. I'm required to involve law enforcement. If later she smacks him, he goes to court and he was like, the medics were there, they're gonna throw a book at me saying, whoa, we had a first responder there, we had a medical professional there, and they didn't report it, that's a problem. So violence on others. Drug-related injuries. This means that if a person overdoses on heroin and there aren't no cops there, it is our job to call the cops. It is a problem. We are mandatory reporters. Now, I've never had to mandatory report drug use because the cops are usually there, or almost always there, so it's kind of sorts itself out. Childbirth. Even as a person that would consider themselves fairly crunchy, tried for a home birth. Technically, if EMS shows up on a childbirth, you have to mandatory report that somebody had a birth at child, even if they don't go to the hospital.
What do we report that to?
It's a good question. Animal bites, not abusive animals. If a human gets hurt by an animal, we have to report that. But we don't have to report people hurting animals because they don't matter. No, I'm just kidding. Essentially, we're mandatory reporters for humans, not for animals. That's a whole different world, whole different thing, right? We also have to report the suspicion of communicable diseases, like if during COVID, I think this guy might have it, he had hemoptysis, and I think it might be TB. Now, who we report this to, Moaz, to answer your question, changes based on the situation. But you know what my number one recommendation is? You Google it.
Is that a horse?
It was a pony. Let's say elder abuse, Georgia. Bam, there it is, first link. Report elder abuse. Whatever state, city, county you're in, whatever situation you have, there's probably stuff in play in governmental websites. Literally, you Google it, you'll find it. Even as an EMS, that's what I did.
It has to be .gov or .edu.
That's right. Well, .gov, yeah. Yeah, arguably .org in some places. Make sure it's official is the point. Now, the reason I put this little pony here is to remind me of this. I think what people think is that, oh, well, this guy was getting abused by, look at his little hat. I think people think like, oh, well, this young man's getting abused by his dad or whatever, but I told the nurse about it. Boom, reported. No. If you think something is going on, you get on that pony and you ride it all the way down. Don't think that because you told a nurse, now she's gonna go do what she's supposed to do. No, you go to georgia.gov, bigabusewhatever.com, blah, and you fill out the report and you talk to the people. If you think something is wrong, then you start the chain. Don't rely on other people. I can guarantee you most people won't. Crime scenes, be very, very careful, right? Preserve as much evidence as you can. Listen to me when I tell you, use a paper bag to store evidence. What kind of bag? Paper. Did you say plastic? No. Paper. Now, I don't really know why. I've Googled it enough times. They say that because air can move through paper bags, it dries up liquids and evidence, which is great. We want that to happen so that it doesn't soak and move. But the point is, paper bags. Got it? That's on my test. It most certainly appears on registry from time to time. Look, if somebody was sexually abused, one of the first impulses is to take a shower. They feel dirty. And we don't tell them that they can't do that. They can do whatever they want. But what I tell them is look, you said they did this to you. And if they did this to you, all the evidence to convict them is carried with you. If you shower, you might wash it down the drain. Let's take that evidence to the hospital, let the doctors get it. You can shower and get all fixed up there, but you do what you want, sweetie. But for now, I recommend you take the evidence with you. See what I'm saying? If she's like, no, I can't, I don't care, I'm doing it, blah, blah. Yes, ma'am, I'll be outside. Let me know if you need anything, right? But make sure that keep stuff in a paper bag. Make sure, 12, I'm sorry I'm cutting into your lunch, gang. Do the highlights and then we'll call it. I didn't even realize it was past 12. Obvious signs of death. There are some things so obvious we don't need to initiate care on. Guy's missing his head chopped off. Doesn't matter how good you are at CPR, it's not gonna work. We need to view all of these things like they are a guy without a head. If a person has been underwater for greater 20 minutes, he's dead. Obvious destruction of vital organs in the head or torso, right? His heart's hanging out of his chest. You don't need to do CPR on that. It's easier, because you just grab it, but it's not very effective. Say it again. Fire, right? His face is all burned up. All he's got is a stump now. Incineration. Now there are stages of death. Don't focus too much on the numbers. I'm not trying to get you there. Mostly what I'm trying to make sure that you know is that livor mortis discoloration happens first. That rigor mortis is the rigidity, the stiffness. And that putrefaction is when they're starting to melt. They're decomping. If you walk in and you see a guy melting, well, not melting, putrefaction, nah, we're good. Don't need to work that. If I walk in and I see a guy who's got blood settling down here, that means he's got cessation of blood movement. He's pooling blood. That guy doesn't come back. If I go to move his arm and it's rigid, it fights against me, it's too much lactic acid in there, that's rigor mortis. All those people, I don't work. Now, do not be confused. If I punch a guy in the back a bunch of times and he gets bruised and then he falls over, it's not livor mortis, it's just bruising on the back. Be careful, right?
You can always just check for a pulse for all three of these.
You can, in many cases you don't need to.
Is discolored more like a paleness?
What does discolored mean? What I mean specifically is shades of blue, purple. It's blood pooling because it's no longer moving through the vasculature. Livor mortis is more commonly called dependent lividity. Definitely a test question on this one. Make sure you can differentiate it. Ignore this picture. Love this one.